So once again, thank you so very much, my brother, Brady Yemi, for having me on this panel on this wonderful afternoon. And thank you so very much once again.
Thank you so much, Odolaye. We also have with us Dr. Chika Mba Cleopas. Dr. Mba is joining us from University of Ghana, Legon. He's a research fellow in the Institute of African Studies.
Good morning and good afternoon, depending on the part of the world you are. It's still morning here in Accra.
Thank you. You're welcome.
This is one of the very few benefits of SARS-CoV-2.
Thank you.
The fact that increasingly we are having these kinds of meetings virtually. Something we thought we would have thought was impossible a few months ago. I was having this conversation very quickly with someone earlier yesterday. That it's just like when cell phone was introduced. Before that time, if I needed to see my brother to discuss whether he has money with him, and I mean, but I have to travel to Cross River, 2 days journey to go. So that seemed, all those kinds of things now seem far-fetched. So maybe this is one positive thing from COVID. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We have all the way from Germany, Obinna Chinweokwu, who is a writer and is a critical columnist. Obinna, you want to say hello to our attendees and our viewers?
Thank you. I hope I'm audible enough because I got a bit cold here, I guess.
Yes, you are.
And so it's, yeah, I'm Obinna, and I've been here in Germany. First of all, I was in Rome where I did my postgraduate studies before coming to Germany for my doctoral studies. So I specialize more in philosophy and ethics. Yeah, I already had one of us, the professors here, speak. So I'm delighted to be part of this discussion. I specialize mostly on philosophical issues, yeah, precisely from postmodern philosophy and also ancient philosophy. And when you met me as the professor, they need to, I'm being invited as one of the panelists. I must really confess that I was a bit nervous, because when it's about corruption in Nigeria, I know we could say this a thing that's been there, but you can't just mention it. You just can't, you can place it, but you know it's there. So when you then offered me this opportunity to be one of you, I couldn't just hesitate, but just say, yes, I accept the invitation. And so I'm glad to be part of you here. Thank you very much.
That's good. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. The last but not least, of course, Ineh-Dumbi, doctoral candidate, doctoral student in the Department of IRD and a lecturer in the Department of Lawal University, Adokiti. Dumbi, you want to say, Michael, you want to say hello to our attendees?
Yes. Thank you very much, moderator. Good morning, good afternoon to the moderator, good afternoon to my fellow panelists, good afternoon to the attendees. I am Michael. My background is in international relations, and I'm quite passionate about the historical perspective to things. I look forward to a fruitful and an enlightening conversation with us all on this very, very essential issue. Thank you very much for the privilege.
Thank you so much. At this point, I would like to request all our attendees to please mute their mic. I will appreciate it. Thank you so much. Kindly mute your mic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. On behalf of, let me start by welcoming you all on board. On behalf of our founder, Aremu, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Smarada Olaride, my own Provost, Ademola Aziz, and of course the leader in my department, Professor Olatoye. I welcome you all to this wonderful edition of our webinar, which we are going to focus on corruption and the Nigerian society. Let me start by saying this, that since we've started this webinar, this, like I said, this is the 10th in the series. This is probably the second one that I received after rape culture that received most attention in terms of not just registration, but questions before the event. It's quite wonderful that we have such feedback. So the question is actually, why are we bothered about corruption? After all, we could all live, we could find a way to survive. We could live through one-day drama that is happening in Nigeria. It was NDDC fainting drama. But I said about how many, 8 years ago, it was OTE. And a lot of other of those dramas happened. This is not the first time. A lot of cancun has been released into the public space that people will just make so much noise, and then at a point, we go on with our life. Why do we just go on with our life like that? But then I'm not here to answer the question. I'm here to pop the question and then let our panelists do justice to that. For those who are joining us, our attendees, those who are watching us, I will scroll. Each of our panelists have a particular area they are addressing from. Professor Lawrence Bamikole will be looking at the morality of incorrigibility in Nigerian socio-political space. Odolaye Waki will be looking at corruptions and Nigerians and corruption, looking at the two sides of corruption and two sides of Nigerian coins. Chika, Dr. Chika will be looking at living with corruption in Nigeria, what hope for the future. Ibrahim Lawal, that I'm expecting to join us, who is the head of Olujimi and Aikuirawo Chambers, will be looking at the facade of corruption in Nigeria, 1999 to 2019, a legal assessment. Mr. Obinna, who is joining us from Germany, and Cultural Foundation of Corruption as it affecting its eradication. And finally, Michael Dumbi will be looking at the monster of moral, a monster of many colors, corruption in history and the reality of the Nigerians. Okay, for our attendees and for those watching us on Facebook Live, that's the way to go today. So, to break the ice, to start, I would like to call on Professor Lawrence Bamikole for his presentation for 10 to 12 minutes. Professor Bamikole, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Chair and the coordinator and my fellow panelists. The issue of corruption is a multi-dimensional issue. It can be seen from different perspectives, and I'm very sure that all of us here that are the panelists, we can discuss the issue from the perspective of our particular disciplines. But I just wish to start by giving just what I can say, a narrow or a kind of broad definition of corruption. And I wish to say that corruption is the collaboration between public officials and private actors for private financial gains in contravention of the public interest. Of course, that definition is very loaded, because the catching word there is the public interest. What do we mean by public interest? In the literature, there are many conceptions of the public interest, but I am looking at the public interest from a normative conception in relation to something that is favorable, that is conducive to the general welfare, whatever how we define the public. And I wish also to say that corruption is the violation of an ethical norm for personal group in relation to the public interest. In other words, this is a kind of utilitarian definition, because we are saying that an action is wrong because it does not promote the welfare or the interest of the public. And of course, we can look at that from also different perspectives. It is also loaded. Now, corruption is a relational term in the sense that it is a form of exchange which is illegal and of course immoral between the corruptor and the corruptee. And again, the corruptor can be enlarged to mean whether it is an individual or agents of the state, or even the whole institutional framework of the political system. And the corruptee also can also be seen from this line. Now, you see, when we look at the literature on corruption, the name keeps on changing depending on the type of society in which we find ourselves. But the most current word for corruption now is kleptocracy. When we say kleptocracy, we are not defining corruption from an individual or agential point of view, but we are looking at regimes, the total structure of the society where political elites use the institutions of the state to garner personal wealth for themselves and their cronies. We have to acknowledge the fact that corruption has a cultural limitation in the sense that what is called corruption in one society might not be corruption in another society. I am not saying that corruption is not wrong, but the perspective from which each society sees corruption differs from one society to the other. And another point is that the way we see corruption may not only depend on this cultural relativist perspective, but it also depends on one's academic discipline. And I can say my colleagues that are fellow panelists that corruption can be defined in relation to a particular discipline in which we have found ourselves. For example, colleagues in economics might look at corruption in one or two ways. We can look at it in the manner in which public goods are sold for private gain. And secondly, we can look at it from the benefits to a corrupt agent of acting against the expectation of a principal that outweighs the cost. And so from the economics point of view, we look at cost benefits of the result of corruption. And for economists, I am not speaking for them, they look at the causes of corruption in a country from the point of view of economic and administrative structures. From the point of view of political scientists, corruption can be seen as an action or inaction that is rooted in a country's structures for attaining, maintaining, and regulating power. Prof, you are from sociology. These are from my readings. Sociologists see corruption as an issue of social relationships. Like I pointed out earlier, corruption is relational in the sense that as we have the corruptor, we also have the corruptee. And the interaction between individuals, groups within society can be in terms of legal connection, but more importantly, moral connection. Now, from the point of view of my discipline, as a philosopher, or as I can call myself a student of philosophy, we look at corruption from an ethical perspective. And I just want to say that it is this perspective that captures all other perspectives, because we see corruption as something that is illegal, something that is immoral, because it is a violation of certain ethical principles. Now, from my research, I look at this definition of corruption given by an author called Patrick Dobell. And this is where I'm connecting it with moral violation. And according to that definition, corruption is the moral incapacity of citizens to make reasonably disinterested commitment to actions, symbols, and institutions which benefit the substantive common welfare. In other words, corruption is about not making a moral commitment to certain institutions that bind people together. In this instance, the institution of the state. And corruption, like I said, is an ethical word. It suggests a kind of a movement from something that is good to bad, or is a debased kind of action, or it is also a perversion of certain ethical principles. These principles might be individual principles or public principles. So as we have individual morality, there's also public morality. Now, I wish to expand on this definition and perspective from the Yoruba, that is my own ethnic group, philosophical system or ethical system. For example, the Yoruba ethical system is grounded on the notion of omoluabi. That is the concept that sums up the ethical system of the Yoruba. And what do we mean by omoluabi? You know, omoluabi is a person who has what we are called moral, ethical, political, and sociological virtues. And virtues like selflessness, virtues like sharing, especially what you have. It might be material, it might be wisdom, it might be knowledge or understanding with other people. Okay? Sympathy, for example, consideration of the interests of others. These are some of the elements of the Yoruba conception of omoluabi. Now, given that concept, when we see corruption, we are going to see that it is a violation of this ethical principle. And when we look at the language, we can see the moral the moral input of corruption. For example, narrowly, corruption is defined as abetele from the Yoruba perspective. Abetele means that, look, I want you to do something for me, whether it is an individual or whether it is on political basis. But before you do this, I have to give you something to motivate you so that you can do it for me. That is abetele. That is, you do that kind of thing before I can have the benefits of that. And now doing something for me can be legitimate or illegitimate. What is important is that I motivated you illegally to do this kind of thing for me by giving you either money or certain gift in different forms. And therefore, corruption is a debasement, is a perversion of the concept of Omoluabi as previously defined.
Prof, you have 2 minutes more, sir.
How many minutes?
2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Now, from the point of view of public morality, every society has its own public morality from which individual actions and agents are derived. Now, the public morality of a society represents the rules and norms that make for an ordered society of which justice, equity, equality, public interest, and fairness are the elements of such well-ordered society. And so any violation of these can be called, called corruption, whether at the level of the individual or at the level of the state. Now, it may be the case that we have more time to actually apply some of these things to the Nigerian situation, so that at least we'll not be talking in terms of theory alone. We also talk in terms of the application of that theory to practical affairs, just like to say the margin of the town with the gown. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. I was just about to tell you that we can still come back to you later on to make the point. While Prof was about to round off, Comrade Ibrahim Lawal join us from Ibadan. Join us from Ibadan. He's the head of chambers of Olujimi and Akeredolu chambers. And I'm so happy that he has to join, he's joining us at the right time. Thank you so much. You are welcome, sir. So go to the next presenter. The next paper is by Odolaye Waki. Odolaye Aremu, you have the floor. Odolaye, you have the floor, Waki. Consider that working Fidelity is having you today. Hey, Waki.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yeah. Once again, I say good afternoon to every one of the panelists, the moderator, and for the gentleman just joining us in here. Welcome welcome onto the show. Once again, I'm Odolaye Aremu Waki from Fidelity. So please, again, bear with me if we're having any difficulties. You have to understand that Fidelity is in the backyard of God right there. So we don't take kindly to technology. Going further, I think corruption, as we experience it in Nigeria, is such that defies definition. We might try as much as possible to apply textbook definitions to the Nigerian situation, but from my observation, from a little bit for a while now, we keep improving on our acts, on our perception, on even our participation in corruption has changed over time. It's kind of an evolution in Nigerian, the Nigerian corruption. Most likely, I would think the Nigerian situation is more of prebendalism than anything else. Yeah, corruption everywhere you go, but the Nigerian corruption is such it's an art on itself. I remember in 1996, a gentleman from Northwestern University, Professor Richard A. Joseph, talked about corruption, and he appropriated prebendalism, a word at that time that was relatively unknown, but it's been a word, it's been coined for centuries ago, but it wasn't much in use until Mr. Joseph applied it to the Nigerian system. And he wrote in 1996, he said, according to the theory of prebendalism, state offices are regarded as prebends that can be appropriated by office holders who use them to generate material benefits for themselves, their constituents, and kin groups. More than likely, that's what we find now in Nigeria. And that aside, our corruption is such that if you happen to be, I used to belong to what you call it, this angle, this arm of the Christendom, Pentecostals back in Pentecostals, the new day Christianity kind of. And I remember they used to have a particular word they always repeat over and over and over and over again in trying to get someone to be part of the group. They used to use the phrase generational, something like generational cycle, when they try to get you to understand the reason why you are stuck in a rut or why you can't move further. They will say, because there's something like a spiritual generation, whatever. That's exactly the way I see the Nigerian situation. It's like we keep spinning, we keep going around in circle, coming back. In the next couple of years, or maybe 10 years from now, we'll be talking more, or we'll be talking about a different kind of corruption that is going on in Nigeria. That's the way I see it. So talking about that, we have come in the last 4 years, from the time of the past regime of Jonathan till the time of the present government, we have seen corruption materialize in different ways. It has actually become a sport now, whereby the players tend to participate in it to win the gold medal. It's almost like a competition between actors. I'm going to be the one to loot or to steal more than you, and I'm going to do it in a way that will get the people more impressed in me. They will get, we even make drama out of it. And that's what we see right now in our country, which in itself is quite saddening. It's quite depressing. So if we are going to look at this topic, I don't want us to just look at it like the first speaker said. I don't want us to look at it only in the theoretical aspect of it. It will be self-defeating if all we do is go to the text and read about what somebody said. We have to find a way to apply the theory to the practical. We have to kind of marry the two together. And someone was talking about that yesterday. I was discussing something with somebody yesterday, and all they kept saying was, we are finished. We are finished. There's nothing we can do. There's no coming out of this. And it bothers me every time we talk about Nigeria, the corruption, and we seem to have no answer for it, except, of course, what we all like to discuss in the beer parlor. We can't say it publicly now. We can't we can't talk about those things publicly. But that is where we are right now in Nigeria. And it is, it's quite disheartening, and that's why we have such panel as we have this morning to discuss about all these problems. It's like I was saying, prebendalism in Nigeria is multifaceted. We have the causes, we have the gains, and we have, of course, the end of all of it. We are right now in the heat of pandemic, and sadly to say, we are stuck. I don't even think we know the government knows the next thing to do. We don't even know what to do ourselves. We've been stuck inside of our homes for some months now. We hear one thing, we hear another, we hear this, we hear that. We are depending now, finally. We are probably depending on somebody to create some vaccine so that we can, after they are done with it, they can kick back to us in Africa. All of these are things that are tied to corruption. Economics, military, the defense, the security sector. Corruption has eaten so deeply into the core of the Nigerian state that hardly can you find someone that is not a direct makeup of corruption. We are all involved, we are all affected, and we are all sadly part of it, one way or the other. So my moderator and the rest of the panels, I'm hoping and I'm looking to get the best of this topic today. I don't have much to say because it was something that came to me quite in an emergency kind of a thing. So I'm just coming up at the top of my head without much of exercise to render this afternoon. But most importantly, corruption has totally taken over. Our corruption has defied logic, no sense of reasonability to it, and it has become somewhat of a national sport. Like I said before, we have become known for it. We have become versatile in corruption. That anywhere you go now, the moment you say you are a Nigerian, the first thing they start thinking about is, oh, Hush Puppy, of course, has become a symbol of some form of corruption as well. The next thing you hear, you mention the dropping one of the big people you know in Nigeria, a very popular person in Nigeria, and that is what we are facing right now. The sad part of it is we have actually bequeathed corruption onto the next generation as well, without even realizing it. The gentleman that spoke before applied the Yoruba term, Omoluabi, the Omoluabi spirit that we're all imbibed with as we were growing up. But at this point in time, you speak about Omoluabi to some generation, they will look at you and they will just look at you and just walk away from you because Omoluabi does not pay the bills, Omoluabi does not feed the family, and definitely Omoluabi does not sustain anybody. That is their belief of it. Our values have been shifted, our values have been switched at this point because of corruption, to the point that some of the things that we hold credence to are things in the past that we'll look at and know that is not important. But at this point in time, the most important thing for anyone at this point it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about money. And corruption already is guided by money, is guided by greed, is guided by ostentatious lifestyle, and it's guided, of course, by, in a way, tribalism as well. And all of these things that we have in abundance in the Nigerian kind of corruption. I'm talking more about the Nigerian corruption because Nigeria is all that concerns me. I don't go anywhere. I don't travel. This is where I know. This is where I've been all my life, and this is where I'm hoping to hand it off. So that's why when I'm saying corruption, I'm quick to apply the Nigerian context to the world because that's where I live. So I'm just making it short, sir. If you don't mind, I will cede the floor to the next panelist at this point in time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Odolaye. We appreciate you really. Thanks for your brief but concise contribution. Before I go to the next presenter, Dr. Tayo, okay. There's a particular year that each time I remember the year, I get worried about the kind of people we are in Nigeria, and that is year 2001. That particular year, we won the happiest people on earth. We won the most corrupt people in the world, and we also won the award of the most religious country in the world. So I asked myself a very fundamental question. How can a people so religious, most religious people, they are so religious, they are so happy because they are so corrupt? Dr. Tayoki, what do you think about that, and what do you think about corruption in our society? You need to unmute, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you for putting me on the spot, Mr. Moderator. I wrote, as you said in your introduction of me earlier, I write a column for the Punch newspaper. I wrote something on corruption in the international system, pinning a lot of things down to the attitude of the United States. And suddenly I got a request from Chinese Daily News asking to translate the article into Chinese to publish in China because he was very, very critical of the United States. And I said, fine. And I said, fine, go ahead. They not only translated into Chinese, they now sent a television crew to come and interview me, at my base at my university. And I said, I'm giving you this chance on the condition that when I write something highly critical of China, you will also translate and publish in Chinese. And they haven't done so. They haven't done so yet.
They will reply that.
No, they're not going to do that. I often get interesting questions and from members of the the audience in Nigeria and elsewhere, saying, "How come you have so beautiful things to write, every week?" And I said, in Nigeria, it is not difficult to find things to write, because things just happen. And the difficulty you have as a writer is having to select, which of the absurdities to cover on a weekly basis. One of such happened in Nigeria a couple of weeks ago. And just quickly remind our listeners, those of them who may not have heard of it, there is a region, an oil-producing region in this country, which is called the Niger Delta region, where we get most of our oil revenue. It's also more or less the most backward area of Nigeria. It's such a terrible contradiction. And a commission was set up to find a way of alleviating the economic degradation of the area. And somehow something happened the last week to force the National Assembly, our parliament, to open a probe of how the commission's work was being manifested. And they uncover an account, a hole, 80 billion naira hole. 80 billion is roughly 206 million US dollars, which could not be accounted for, and which necessitated a National Assembly probe only last week. And everybody's been everybody's been up in arms about that. How can 80 billion naira just disappear into thin air? And so therefore we've been talking about corruption, and that's precisely that incident is what I'm going to peg my presentation to this afternoon, because I'm going to be writing about it in my column next Tuesday. So what I'm presenting to you right now is an advance copy of my writing on the Tuesday. So so I still urge you to read it on Tuesday, not minding what I'm giving to you right now. So I'm going to be giving you a very unusual take on corruption, what you would say unconventional. Some would say radical view of the whole idea of corruption, because forgive me, Mr. Moderator, the word corruption is overused. It's overused, I think, it's overused in the Nigerian political lexicon. Because what we are witnessing in the case of the Niger Delta Development Corporation, the killer of the Pro, what we are witnessing is not corruption per se. What we are witnessing is a rare glimpse, a lifting of the veil and a window into the murky world of national cake sharing formula and the ugly faces of the diners at the table. To the uninitiated, it is corruption, it is graft, it is stealing, and all of those familiar epithets. But to the people inside, to the insiders, to the animals on the farm, it is understood as revenue sharing of the national cake. After all, the chairman, or rather the minister in charge of the Niger Delta Development Corporation, came out openly and said the members of the are themselves beneficiaries, probably, although he has seen it go. So the chairman or the acting managing director of the commission, as I'm sure you remember, had to be helped out of the chamber because he fainted when he was put under serious cross-examination. Who wouldn't have fainted? Even an angel of God answering those unanswerable questions would have probably, slumped, fainted, perhaps even worse. We see individuals finding themselves in jail in Nigeria from time to time for misappropriation of public funds. We hear about it on television and print media. But the question I'm asking is, has there been reward for not misappropriating public funds in this country? So I'm keen to know one individual who has ever been garlanded, who has ever been praised for having kept their hands clean whilst in government, because such people don't exist. They die quietly. They are dead heroes, more or less. So therefore, if you live in a society under a system where reward for honest living exists only in heaven, where then is the incentive not to misappropriate public funds? And furthermore, if you live in a country whose very existence and whose very legitimacy remains highly contested, like Nigeria, where is the incentive not to misappropriate its commonwealth? So let us unpack these two hypothetical questions by looking at how corruption is tied to the political economy of the state in Africa. So during the colonial struggle for independence across the continent, starting from the late 1930s to 40s and 50s, the state at the time was this giant leviathan suffocating the inhabitants of the territories under occupation. It was in fact a totalitarian state, which afforded the colonized little room to breathe, let alone exercise individual freedoms. In America, as we will recall, no taxation without representation was the revolutionary swan song of the struggle for independence in 1761. That was a rejection of the practice of paying taxes commandeered by the British Parliament, in which they had no representatives. So the struggle for independence in Africa was a spillover from the earlier struggle in the US. But in Africa, the state was seen as enemy number one in the eyes of the nationalists and the anti-colonial freedom fighters. It was the only bond of understanding between the disparate ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. Our national leaders and independent freedom fighters did not, at the times, see themselves as Igbos, Hausas, Efik, whatever. They just knew they had a common enemy, which was the colonial state. So the modestly educated as well as the highly educated national leaders did not directly take up arms, but they waged a prolonged war, a campaign of civil disobedience to the state. Since the state was the enemy number one, therefore, stealing from its covers was not only welcomed by the population at large, it was seen as a patriotic duty on the elite, so to do. Government property was seen as nobody's property. asset stripping of the state was rationalized as restorative justice by the nationalists. So weekend retreats into villages and provinces were usually accompanied by distribution of largesse, loot, if you like, to their clans. So the Robin Hood syndrome was developed there and then, and it took root, and it has been woven into the fabric of the state in Africa. So the colonial state fought back, often by throwing the nationalist leaders in jail for lengthy periods. It worked for the British as it slowed down the pace of the independence agitation in Nigeria, but it backfired because it took away the novelty of elite imprisonment from the people's consciousness. Political leaders going to jail was no longer a deterrent. It became a badge of honor, in fact. So you come out of prison, you rejoin the comrades and resume the war of attrition against the state. So the point I'm making, the thesis I'm putting down today is that this colonial structure of reference has remained with us till today. It is unspoken, it is unproclaimed, but it permeates our inner thoughts and our leaders' decision-making processes. Today, a politician comes out of jail and is immediately welcomed back on the red carpet by his people. As much as the late General Abacha stole and almost bled this country to death, he still has monuments in his honor, not only in his hometown of Kano, but more significantly in the nation's capital, Abuja. Our people, not just the elite, they still see and smell the colonial state all around them in reference to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it makes it easier to steal from it without batting an eyelid. So when you then add the toxic mix of ethnic resentment and state capture by particular groups of elites, it affirms and reaffirms the sense of alienation people feel from the state apparatus and the reluctance to protect its commonwealth. The state in contemporary Africa has carried on by making its presence felt more or less in the same manner as the hated colonial state. Militarization of civil life is all too glaring around us. Leadership hierarchy in many African politics is still largely dominated by people with ties to the security forces. The state is nominally independent, but it remains fragile and continues to struggle for legitimacy. It resorts to keeping order by coercion most of the times. Legislature would even resort to issuing threats of arrest against citizens in order to enforce compliance. Unlike the state in Western democracies, there is as yet no commitment to its survival among the citizens in Africa. This is hardly surprising, since the presence of the state is only ever felt when they are being coerced and when they are being bludgeoned into submission to its authority. So the building blocks of the welfare state, as it is in Europe and America, belongs in the realm of dreams for ordinary citizens in Africa. So consequently, when the occasional opportunity to cut a slice of the cake falls into our laps, educated or not, illiterate or not, PhD or primary school, we nurse no compunction. We waste no time in taking our own share. As we speak, reports of another gargantuan corruption probe involving the Northeast Development Commission has also come to the fore. And we are being told that up to 100 billion naira has been frittered away in less than 1 year. 100 billion naira would be the equivalent of $258 million in 1 year alone. So what I would say, in conclusion, is that I would urge you, panelists and our compatriots, blame them not, do not blame them. Do not blame these actors who are around the dining table. It's their turn to eat. Simple as that. The question is, where does that leave us? Where do we go from there? It's an entirely different debate, which I'm quite keen to join, but I leave it to the rest of the panelists to make their contribution first. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Dr. Chika Mba.
Yeah.
Can you come to the table? Because when you are at the table and you are eating, you don't talk. I hope we are not on the table eating too, like Dr. Okia said, that we should allow those who are on the table eating for now, allow them to have a taste of what they are eating. And you know, when you are eating, you don't talk. It's against the rule in Africa. You have the floor, please, you can talk. At least you can stop a while now, you can stop eating and talk.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, panelists and other participants. Everyone is welcome. Yemi Ademo was my classmate, and I'm sure any other person who knows me personally here will know that apparently I'm just fed up and tired, given the way my voice and everything is right now. Because honestly, I don't know. I'm always at a loss how to theorize Nigeria. I have 10 to 15 years of scholarship behind me, but I've only managed to write one review, the review of a book on Nigeria. I haven't done much. Because each time I want to theorize Nigeria, I don't know where to start. So I would like to maybe continue from where the first two panelists stopped. The question of how do we solve the problem? You know, and that's why I said living with corruption in Nigeria. What hope for the future? That's the title. You know, just before I started speaking, I just saw this message on my WhatsApp. I don't know whether people can say it, but those are school children. You can see, those are school children. They are going to school, but you see, they have to go through, which part of Nigeria is that? The Niger Delta. It's, the last speaker just was mentioning the Niger Delta and the criminality there. But this is life. So I am connected with very many different Nigerian organizations and groups. So sometimes the lodge of information, I can't follow it. But I'm probably, and perhaps unfortunately for me, one of the most abreast Nigerians in terms of what goes on and happens in Nigeria every minute of the day. And it's never pretty. So, yeah, living with corruption. So I know what corruption is all about. I am corruption. As a Nigerian, I live corruption. I breathe corruption. I eat corruption. No, I swim corruption. So there is no pretense about this. Forget about Omoluabi. I mean, with all due respect. And I'm going to, everything I say at the beginning, I try to strengthen my claims before I finish, even though I have just 5-10 minutes. So, because if you talk about Omoluabi, it will appear as if the elders who, who grew up with those, having imbibed those values, it will appear as if they're any better. It will appear as if they are doing it right. But we know that old man, that is in charge of Asurok, we know that he's probably one of the most disastrous Nigerians on earth. And we know of a certain Baba in Djibouti. We know. So, and these people are supposed to be the fangers of Omoluabi. So, Biko Ejo, Mabinu, let us leave that one first. It is not part of it. Because, like I said, as a Nigerian, I live corruption. I know what it's all about. I even know some of you. I know about all our corruption. So I'm not saying I'm attacking panelists, you see, but I'm trying to say that we are all living corruption in Nigeria. So let's not pretend about it. So, and another problem is that people discuss corruption as if in Nigeria, as if every other thing is right in Nigeria. and we just have to solve this one problem called corruption. But it's much more than that, you see. Reality is that other problems to do with religion, of course, I'm hand in glove with you in that all the time, ethnicity, and perhaps above all, poverty, have played even bigger roles than corruption to bring the average Nigeria into what I call the zone of bare humanity. I am following Hannah Arendt to the extent. So I am referring to it to the zone that the average Nigeria occupy right now as the zone of bare humanity, or what, if I follow Frantz Fanon, I'll call the zone of non-being. And this should be taken very seriously. Reality is that other problems, and then our politicians have simply weaponized these other factors, especially ethnicity and poverty against Nigerians, so that for Nigeria to recover from its current state and overcome, among other problems, the issue of corruption requires something I don't know if it is possible to achieve, given the current configuration of that entity called Nigeria. This is because Nigeria has now become synonymous with corruption. Other panelists have already said that. The same way the Google image for the word idiot is now Donald Trump. So if you get the extent. More than this unfortunate scenario is the loss of a sense of self-respect. That's the worst thing that has happened to Nigerians because of political corruption. A loss of a sense of self-respect, a sense of human dignity among many Nigerians. Nigerians need first to rediscover themselves, their very humanity, before they can counter the problem of corruption. So I'm going after solutions. We need to, first of all, Nigerians are too easily pleased. I mean, like, you know it now, a little thing, when the electricity comes for 10 hours, I mean, if the light goes ahead, they have tried. And that's why you have a NEPA. You see, this is a country where we have been reduced to occupy the zone of, I have been, I moved a bit around. Only in Nigeria, these things happen. You take everything from Nigerians and give us little, and then we celebrate. So we first need to rediscover ourselves, our very humanity. And this is what MKO Abiola, unfortunately of blessed memory, meant when he said that Nigeria, that's not to say that it's, because like I said, Nigeria lives corruption. Abiola lives corruption. You know, this was what, but then Abiola had said that Nigeria will become great one day. When the hewers of wood, I know that older people among us will remember this famous quote. When the hewers of wood, both conductors and water drawers, discover their purpose in life. For me, this means becoming aware of our human dignity. This, like I've said, have been completely taken away from us. For this is possible, for this to be possible, we need to have options. I mean, we need to at least overcome the challenge of bare necessities of life, so that we can begin to see ourselves as human beings again, because this is lost. So if you look at the faces of Nigerians, the way we talk, and that's why we always talk about God, pushing everything to God. If you live in Nigeria, you may not realize how we have become, how we have come to accept daily inhuman torture as a part of life. After a long period of time, many Nigerians are now so easy to satisfy. I've been saying that we are satisfied by morsels that the dogs of the rich or the other more prosperous societies can easily reject. Nigerians will take those morsels. So, hello?
Yes, please go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll tell you something from a personal experience. And this is to buttress the point I've been making that we leave corruption. And to also point you to why I'm saying the kinds of things I'm saying, that we need to rediscover our humanity. I was on a mandatory National Youth Service in 2005 in a locality in Cross River State. And we were supposed to, brought the students to write exams, final year, the WAEC exams, and then to my very surprise, the owner of the school, a pastor, a man maybe in his 60s at that time, a respected gentleman in the community. In fact, the name of the school, I almost mentioned it by accident, you know, is a church. It's supposed to be attached to a church, you see. But when the exam started, we were all entreated to help the students write the exams, not to read, not take book, not the one that you write something and go and show. This one is to bribe the supervisors so that we can now collect the scripts from the students and go and write for them and return it there, and in exchange for a certain amount of money, which is again shared with the proprietor. This was Nigeria 2005. And those who decided not to pay were vilified, just very few. In fact, it got to a point where we had to be writing the answers on the board for people to copy. And some of them could still not copy. But, you know, but the man has to survive. This is Nigeria. And after that experience, and I tell you what, when I wanted to make noise, the first thing I realized was that my life was in danger. The youth corpers were all in danger because the host community, the elders, they have already agreed that this is the way to do it. So if you make any noise, you know, you are not going to leave that place alive. I was directly threatened. So I can tell you I participated in this process. And also because of the poverty that was, you know, biting me at that time as well. You know, in addition to the threat to my life, in addition that I could not see any other way out. This is Nigeria we are talking about. And this is about our future. That's why I'm talking about the future. So this type of students, when they grow up, so what are you going to teach those students about not anti-corruption or whatever? They don't understand because they are a process, they are a product of corruption. Your children, our children are products of corruption. And this I witnessed firsthand. In fact, during that, one of the worst things that happened to me was that my secondary school teacher came there as one of the supervisors and saw me there and was happy to see me to exchange money to do the usual business. So I'm going to round off. In all, what I'm saying is that we are living corruption in Nigeria today. We have been living it right from the time of Umaru Diko. You know, we started living corruption in Nigeria. Even before that, even before Umaru Diko, we know what people like Awolowo, you know, the so-called founding fathers of Nigeria, people like Azikiwe, the kinds of things they said, their conception of politics is about lining their pockets. In all, we are living corruption in Nigeria. I can tell you that there are only two pathways to overcoming corruption in Nigeria. The approach I suggested at the very beginning, for the Nigerians who have been expelled from humanity by a combination of the colonial experience and criminal governance by our own political elites, to come to their senses, to discover their Abiola's purpose, and fight against the intolerable injustice that has ravaged them for decades. It's either we rediscover ourselves and rise up in the kind of thing Showore was saying, that I now see a lot of abuses heaped against him, you know, or the kind of thing Idibia, you know, once proposed. I mean, we have to do something from bottom. But first, we have to realize that we're human beings, because right now, there are very few human beings living in Nigeria. Even those who are supposed to be in the middle class. Because in fact, for you to survive in the middle class in Nigeria, you have to have strong tie to the people at the very top, to the politicians and the very humongously rich businessmen who are also connected to politics or who are criminals overseas. So that is one way that we can go to rediscover ourselves, see ourselves as human beings instead of as something less than dogs, not subhumans, but Nigerians, because we accept the unacceptable. We say all those things are drama. We see them as drama. Well, I've even heard that here, but they're not drama. Our lives have been destroyed, and many other societies we say no, but Nigeria we accept it. Then the second option is to never punish people at the bottom for corruption, to punish only people at the top at the very beginning of the new fight against corruption. No, so this is what I would call the Singaporean example. This is the Singaporean option. To never punish people at the bottom for corruption, but punish only people at the top when we start this new fight against corruption. So this, to just give you a little bit of background, a government minister accepted some kind of vacation, from some business moguls in Singapore in the early 1960s, when Singapore was still a very poor country, So he accepted to go on vacation with businessmen, but no bribery, nothing. He didn't do anything for them. But just because he accepted to travel with them on vacation, when he came back, he was tried and sent to jail. So after that, corruption died in Singapore. And that's why you are hearing of Singapore today. Corruption died from the beginning of 1960 because somebody was sent to jail for going on vacation with businessmen. Just think of where you live today, where we live today in Nigeria. After that, like I said, corruption died a natural death in Singapore. So if Nigerians can regain their humanity and fight off the political corruption from below, which would be my preferred approach, then we have to hope that the right kind of leadership will emerge and begin by punishing people at the top for corruption. That will mean prosecuting some high-profile cases of corruption and sending them to jail with hard labor, and later consign them into political and social oblivion. We know the names. They are all there before. Some of them recently, but the Babangidas of this world, That, I think, is a harder option. But it's either we fight from below or we hope to put people at the top, somebody who will start punishing corruption and never jail anybody at the bottom who engages in corruption. And let's see what will happen. Now, to finish, this is something I think I see a little bit of that in the Ghanaian society. In this society, if you have ever participated in something shady, or if you have been saying some kinds of things, the kinds of things someone like General Buhari had said, somebody cannot say them in Ghana and later unsay them. In politics, we know where you belong in Ghana. So if you say certain kinds of things, you cannot come back and say you have changed, you have repented. So, because we know that is where you stand. So you cannot say like that meme in Nigeria of an antelope with some legs, 2 legs in front and the hind leg the other side. You cannot do that here. We know where you belong. You cannot say you have repented, you have turned a new leaf. That's false. That is where we are getting it very wrong in Nigeria.
Thank you, sir.
The Buharis of this world, another chance. I stop.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mba. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Mr. Ibrahim, Lawal. Dr. Mba was talking about prosecution and how prosecution could assist in shaming some people into doing the right thing. You have the floor for your own presentation.
Yes, let me start by thanking the organizers of this discourse, particularly the moderators who conscripted me to be part of this program. Let me start by saying that when I listen to people talk about corruption and our discussion on corruption is centered on political corruption or centered on people who are politically exposed as corrupt people, I get disturbed. I get disturbed in the sense that we need to look at corruption from broader perspective. And it is only when we look at it from that perspective that we will realize the problem that is confronting us as a people. Corruption permeates the strata of the society. Somebody who is a manufacturer who knows that when you want to manufacture, there are certain measurements that you are supposed to put in what you are manufacturing that will give you a quality product, decide to reduce it and sell that kind of a product at the same price that you will find the original product. Is corruptly enriching himself. That is corruption in the highest level. Somebody who says he's a businessman and deals in drugs and specializes in purchasing or selling fake drugs because they want to make money is corruptly enriching himself and endangering the lives of our people. Somebody who does not have a reasonable means of livelihood and suddenly became so wealthy and the society is celebrating him, is also, setting the society up for corruption. We can go on and on and on to look at what is even the causes, what is even the influence of corruption in our living. A teacher who wants to also help a student to pass exam, or an administrator who, because you know the mother or the father of a prospective applicant into a university and wanted to help the person, even when the person is not qualified to get that admission, is also aiding and abetting corruption. So when you look at it from those, perspectives, you know that you hardly can exonerate anybody from this issue of corruption, either wittingly or unwittingly. And I want to say that the problem of corruption has never been, absence or shortage of law. Laws have always been promulgated, to curb or fight corruption, even from the days of the colonialists. We will have laws. Even our criminal code, our penal code is very clear as to the issue of whether forgery, whether misappropriation of funds, name it. We always have laws. But the problem with fighting corruption is those that will apply the law, particularly those institutions that are saddled with the responsibility of investigating those infractions. Don't let us deceive ourselves. If you report any corrupt practices in the police, let us even leave police. Let us even go to EFCC. As serious-minded they appear to be, I can assure you that if you have your money, you have enough money to build your way, there are still some who will not, be prosecuted. And when they prosecute, you have your money. They can also, they can jeopardize the process in such a way that even when you now go to court, they don't have a foolproof evidence. They would have, in one way or the other, they would have done one or two things to compromise, the investigation. And that is why when they go to court, you see some people, still winning in court, despite the fact that they said they have investigated and stuff like that. There is no seal, I mean zeal, on the part of the handlers. The authorities are not so much interested in fighting corruption. We as a people are not so much interested in fighting corruption. When you look at most of arguments or fights, even amongst politicians, amongst our people, when you ask them, what is the issue? You will be hearing, there is no money. Apologies to non-Yoruba people around here. We are not eating. It might not be that the person is not performing or is not working, but it's not settling boys. It's not bringing money out. So you look at it that even Nigerians, as far as I am concerned, we don't even know what we want. And structures are, established, for settlement, not necessarily for development. When government creates agencies, it will be manned by people. They are not going to import people from outside the country to come and man it. You ask yourself, what is the expectation of those that have been appointed? When people are appointed to positions, you will see them go to church to go and do Thanksgiving. You will see people organizing parties for them. You will see, people congratulating them, even on the pages of newspapers. Service. And you would think they are doing that because they love the person. No. They are doing it so that they can register their presence and say, I'm here. When you see people awarded a contract and they celebrate that they win contracts, then you will know that it is not, because if you are given a job to do, why must you celebrate that you are given a job to do? Not even completion. And so when you see people celebrating, winning a contract, then you will know that something is wrong with us as a people. And when you, instead of giving jobs to people that are qualified, you give to cronies and allies because you expect that something will be brought back in returns. So basically, the issue of corruption, like the last speaker said, is an issue that is embedded in us. It is embedded, but that does not to say that we do not have our values. Values, each person, the values reduce. And that's why I want to disagree, with the last speaker about the concept of Omoluabi. Whether you like it or not, the concept of Omoluabi is with us. Whether some set of people now imbibe it or not does not matter. It will be committing a fallacy of hasty generalization to say that because somebody who is the president is elderly, or that another person is elderly, that means that every elderly person in Nigeria is not Omoluabi, or the concept of Omoluabi is a bush. I disagree, totally and vehemently with that postulation. Omoluabi, the concept of Omoluabi still resides with our people. We still know when I was growing up in Ile-Ife, I know that when people comes around and you display unnecessary words without, the accompanied reasons or basis for that words, we will be warned not to go to that person's place. We are warned. There is nothing that person will give to us that we will take. Those are the things we are brought up with. And I know that there is a particular festival in Ile-Ife. They call it AD. It is during that period that they will go and put debts in the house of somebody that is corrupt or a thief. They call it Epakodileole. We know all those things. But the way our society is structured now, we don't live a communal life any longer. Our children does not even understand our language, not to talk of our culture, has greatly impacted or affected the way we see ourselves and the way we relate. We are no longer our brother's keeper. And that is why it is easy, convenient for somebody who is put in charge of development of an area to siphon the money meant for development in those areas. And that is why you will hear, an unfortunate revelations from NDDC and some other agencies of government that are supposed, to serve the interest. They just tell themselves. Even the civil servants are not excluded. In fact, most of the
corruption are led by civil servants. Network.
That are facilitated by during Abiola Jimoh's era in Oyo State. There was a time they wanted to give compensation to flood victims, rain disaster, whatever, and they wrote some names, and the government approved it. Who are those that will collect the name? The civil servants. The government, they present it to the government approves the one that will implement. One of the women who resides in the area I was living before sells oil and what have you. My wife used to take our children from that place when the bus dropped, the school bus. And the woman received a phone call from one of the civil servants at the secretariat and said, I have submitted your name. They will call you. And when they call you, they are going to give you mattress, they are going to give you roofing sheets, they are going to give you everything so that you will return it back to me, and we discuss about how we are going to. Then you now ask yourself, to governments, they have released money for certain projects which are supposed to be handled by civil servants, but on their own, they have injected names. In fact, you will be shocked the majority of those that will be the beneficiary might not be the affected people. And at the end of the day, you see them building gigantic building and what have you. And when they now want to lay the blame of corruption, you lay it at the doorstep of politicians alone, as if civil servants are, innocent or they are saints. So what I'm saying in essence is that to tackle corruption, we must, as a people, decide on our own to push away corruption from our life. It is a thing that has been embedded in us. We don't ask questions. People will be even in secondary school. My wife teaches in a secondary school. Most of their principals will spend money that even people contribute. The students contribute money, their parents pay for certain fee and what have you. You have some principals that will not do anything in that school, will just ask for the money and they will spend. And no teacher have the temerity to also query such principals. We have seen cases where projects are done in secondary school and they ask the principal to sign that they have completed. When they have not done it, and the principal said no. They called him from the teaching service and say, is it your father's work? These are things we contend with as a citizen. So when we come out and begin to lambast a Buhari alone or Shimbajo or the governors, and we don't look inward and also blame ourselves for contributing to such a malaise. Because if something is supposed to be done in our area and it's not done and we are not talking, then we have contributed. This attitude of I would not be part of the person that would destroy somebody's life. Even when that person is doing a wrong thing, you don't want to report him because you don't want to be seen to be part of that person that has destroyed another person's life. Our culture of tolerating what is bad is also increasing the propensity to be corrupt in Nigeria. Our culture of not rewarding, honesty is also contributing to, if you are too honest and you are posted into a particular place and people find out that you are too honest, too rigid, they report you and they will transfer you to where you will not even see anything again. That is the kind of culture that we now have in Nigeria. So we need to, interrogate those things and know what is actually wrong with us as a people. Why not exonerating the government? I wouldn't, but the truth of the matter is that the followers themselves have a long way to go. If you shout and say this thing is not bad, they will tell you it is because you have not benefited. And when you don't talk, they say you are eating, like the moderator said.
On the table.
So those are the issues that we need to interrogate. And my own take about all these things is that we must, as a matter of duty and conscience, to begin to demand accountability, even from our own household. We must, inculcate that culture of accountability towards ensuring that we return ourselves back to that era of probity. I'm also of the view that the way our legal system is structured, particularly those who are saddled with the responsibility of maintaining law and order, we must have a second look at it. One, majority are peopled, all those places are peopled by unprofessional characters. The way we handle things is the unprofessional way that it gives accused room, to wriggle out of whatever allegations that we have placed before them. So we need to change our system, and more importantly, commitment to fight corruption. We need to love our country. We need to love it. If you don't love it, anything goes. We might not be interested in the outcome. But when we have genuine love for our country, we have genuine love for our community, we'll get interested in what goes on, and we'll be able to expose inequities regardless of whose ox is God. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, Barrister. Okay, they say we should not call you people barrister again. Barrister at law, not as a designation. Yes, not as a title. So, thanks so much for that wonderful contribution, Mr. Ibrahim Lawal Esquire. It seems the direction of the discussion today is giving us different look at corruption from different perspectives, which is exactly the essence of this. Barrister Ibrahim just caution, we shift away. Not just, of course, I know like I said, Dr. Chika was at the table as a diner, just like Dr. Olatoye has suggested. But then Ibrahim Lawal Esquire insisted that we must shift the gaze away from those even on the table to look at ourselves holistically. Corruption in all places, corruption everywhere. It's very important we look at it that way. I quite agree with him. But that is my own perspective. Those are the submissions of those who have made their presentation. Let's go to Obinna. Obinna Chinweokwu, you have the floor. What is your own position on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. You got my son in right this time. Yeah, I would say first of all that I disagree with the first presenter, because he tried to associate corruption with the financial gains. When we go back to the genesis of the word corruption, I think it doesn't have anything to do with, let me say, money, as a financial gains. The word corruption is Latinized, or let me say just like, it means a breakage, a rupture, like it entails a hole, then there is a rupture. That is why we call corrompere, as a corrotta, that's Italian. It means there's a breakage of a flow. The word also from bankruptcy, like bankrupture, it comes from there, as the seamless flow of cash. It's as though the bank is broken, as though the hole is now broken. There is no longer how do I say a seamless flow. So there's a rupture somewhere. So corruption in this sense means that there is a rupture from what should have been a whole. Then when we talk about the issue of Nigeria, we already see from the 1914s, when in the heydays of colonialism, we talk about amalgamation of Nigeria, so the amalgamation, northern and southern protectorates. You see already with the term amalgamation that it doesn't really strike the core of what unity should be. For instance, every October 3 here in Germany, we celebrate this Einheit, also Deutsche Einheit. That's the fall of the Berlin Wall, as when the East and the West Germany became united once more. The story from the what I call the Besatzung, also the occupation by the communist Russia, USSR, took over the Eastern Germany and walled them in. So there was this difficulty or the disparity between the both states till they reunited. So this already is, it evokes the tenor of unity, which is unlike in Nigeria. Nigeria names its amalgamation, and that means a disparate, elements, disparate elements are being cobbled together to form a homogeneous whole, and such a way it doesn't work. So going back to the corruption, I would like to say, first of all, that I am a bit skeptical, because I attach corruption to democracy. You already know this famous saying from Lord Acton that says, and power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So in the ancient Greece, I would use the example of, that's where we got this democracy, demokratos, the power of the people, the power of the rabble, So Aristotle and Plato, they already had a concept of a rule, and this rule, they were also cynical against democracy, because they realized already democracy is a degenerative step towards anarchy. Democracy promises this power of representation, but at long last, it becomes the representation of its own interest and becomes a power that it tries to topple from other political regimes. So they already said aristocracy was the best form of government. They lived that way. Democracy came, saying it represents the power of the people. The people could say, they could say what they feel, it's just like the voice of the voiceless. So that was how the society then took up hold of a new form of regime till, let's say, around the 18th centuries, with the French Revolution and all that, tried to topple the divine rights of kings and the Robespierre and the revolution. Then came institutionalized this democracy. We are not yet back in Africa, because this came to Africa, particularly in Nigeria, when there was a rupture, you say, between primordialism that was pre-colonial Africa, or the pre-colonial Nigeria, and the post-colonial Nigeria that now adopted democracy as a model. So when this happened, we should also know that before the formation of this democracy, the world, or from the Aristotelian Greece or the Platonic Greece, it says that the community is being formed from families. Family household, like the barrister said, you have to look at, we begin from the household. That is what the rule was. Now, oikos, politikos, that was the foundation of what democracy should have been until late 18th centuries, let me say, with the French Revolution, everything was toppled. Then democracy became a sort of, an enthronement of anarchy. You saw the Robespierre, the revolution, the upheaval, and which also cost his own life, And when we then talk about this, the Nigerian situation on corruption, first of all, I will say that Nigeria had a very false start. False start that it was not ready to be democratic. we can push whatever we like to the politicians and say the political class and all that, you know. The problem here is that the democracy is no longer what it used to be or what it ought to be. I give an instance to say that corruption is not only peculiar to Nigeria. 2 months ago, or just a month, there was one of the youngest parliamentarian in Germany here is Philip Amthor, CDU, also the Angela Merkel's party. So he was caught, he's 27-year-old, right? Yeah. So he lobbied for a company to come into Germany named Augustus, and later he was discovered. So he got few shares and whatever, and he was also a candidate for his party, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, yeah? And then afterwards, he lost his candidature. He said he doesn't want to get till he's been probed. That's the German system. Once a story is being dredged up, you know, ferreted out, yeah, a new scandal is given birth to as well as gestated. So you do not have any right to represent the people because this fiduciary, so this power of representation is already broken. That's the rupture there. We also see from the case of Nicolas Sarkozy, also back then in France, the big Malone affair, and also the inclusion or the interference, the financial involvement of the Libyan leader, that time the Gaddafi, in the electoral process in France. And till today, I don't know, maybe it's just a hushed up scandal, but it's still not, as I think the probe is ongoing. Or we talk about Italy, that's, we all know that Berlusconi was already synonymous to corruption. Everyone knew that. But why Nigerian corruption, or let me say, why there is a distinction between these modes of exercise of corruption or the practice of corruption lies in the brashness of Nigerian mode of corruption. You know, these other countries, or the Russian, we also have one of the cases back then in Nigeria where we have one of the companies, I think Mavrodi MMM, that many Nigerians were like stuck into whatever PHGH, provide help and give help and whatever, and lost all their monies. It is not institutionalized, as there is always a probe to get to the core. Most times when they are getting to the core and it involves that political, like let me say the elites, also the political oligarchs are involved, and it's more like a transnational corruption, it is being hushed up. But the problem with the Nigerian corruption is that it has no modus operandi. It's just everywhere. You see them. Some time ago, this to tell you that we are all imbricated in this system. Some time ago, my passport got, you know, it was expired. I had to put a call through to Berlin for the renewal of my passport. I was told I should come for the next 2 months or whatever to pick up a new one. But you know, this Nigerian factor and impatience, so I had to seek for a cut corner, you know, and so I had to like cut corners. So I called another country where I could just go there, get it that same day, and it worked. But the problem was that rather than my paying $106 of what I should have paid if I had gone through the due process, I was made now to pay 250 euros because I wanted a budget. So that's now the Nigerian system, that even if you're outside, even if you're in diaspora, you take this element of corruption with you because you have been brought up in this system. There is no longer civic education. It's lacking in the people. Then going back to the Nigerian situation, we already see with the power of representation, as I said it, that democracy is already faulty. Democracy is a model that tells you that it represents the voiceless. But when you look at democracy, you know that there is no quite difference between democracy and oligarchy. As there were already, like I said before, philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, postmodern philosophers, Derrida, Jacques Rancière, they were all against that. They were cynical that there was no representative power in democracy. In fact, I think it was Aristotle. He already said that democracy is a nursery bed for corruption. It slips into corruption, or it can engender corruption. And that is exactly the situation we have in Nigeria today. That Nigeria had a very false start from the beginning. It doesn't know what democracy represented. It just wanted to, like, latch onto the modern guys, like the modern spirit, telling you, oh, let's just try this new form of government, but the readiness wasn't even there. That's why you see still the recycling of these same old, the gerontocrats, these military men. They just put out their military uniforms, put on their abada, and they are now Democrats, So there is no atom of understanding. There's no ounce of understanding what democracy should have represented, that it was, or it ought to be, the power to represent, not even a power, as a representative formula. And this was where the problem, or where the crux of the problem lies, that democracy, rather than being a power or a representative power, becomes a modus operandi, or a modus as the way to enthrone or to authoritize the same power that it tries to topple from other regimes. We now give the instance, let me say, there was a story, I think was one of the Catholic priests back then. He told a story about a child he wanted to help. He saw this child on the street. He had wounds, lesions all over the body. So he then asked him what happened. I think it was a case of an accident or whatever. So he took him to the hospital. The wounds were dressed, he healed and all that. The next week, he saw him back there begging. He asked him, what was the problem? Why are the wounds still fresh? He told the story that my mother used a broomstick to scratch open my wounds. For what reason? Because if we don't, we not go chop. You understand? So this is now that the power of representation in politics. We saw that with the Ogoni 9. Now is the probe of NDDC. We saw that with the probe of Ogoni 9. The movement of the salvation of Ogoni people, Ken Saro-Wiwa, and how they were all murdered. People saw, the misery, the terrible conditions they were being subjected to, though they were the financial backbone of the whole country. Then ministry created, or maybe I would say, or Mopadek or whatever, from what Babangida called it back then NDDC ministry came. Yeah, Sopadek, yeah. The NDDC ministry then came, and it was to be a representation of the marginalized peoples. But what do we see today? What happened just this week? It was a farcical display of you would even see that's the probe we or whatever we call probe was never, it's not even called probe in the real sense of the word. When you look at probes, like you see from the CNN, when the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, is being probed here for giving out the confidential information to all these markets where that sends you adverts and all that. You could even see the trepidation in him. But we saw what happened. Those ones were not like, they knew that there is no punishment. We were not even done with that when we saw the next day that of what's he called? The former governor of Anambra.
Aikuirawo State.
No, I mean the next one, the former governor of Anambra State. They are Faleke and
yes, sir.
That was a probe. But when you see that, you ask yourself, was that really a probe, or just like they were doing a sham display of or what would I say, as in like comparison of age. I be your senior, I be Moshin, you be V, I be VI, you be Moshin, and all that. These were things that ought to be serious, but there is no seriousness there, because they already knew that they represent the part of the caucus that cannot be punished. They cannot be held responsible for their actions. Even if there is a probe or whatever, they are being found guilty or whatever. After 6 months, they're out. They could recycle themselves back into the Senate House. This is where the problem is. I don't know whether to say that the problem is like Chinweokwu said then, back then, I think he wrote that in 1983.
You have 2 minutes more, sir.
The trouble with Nigeria. He said it. He said the trouble with Nigeria is because the politicians are not what they should be, and the Nigerians can be that. The politicians are there. They are like the authority without responsibility, and the Nigerians are like the responsibility without authority, but they can't work together. That's why they then have to clash. My solutions, because there's no way you have to be diagnosing this problem without talking about solution. My solution to this is, first of all these probes and whatever, the government should be debureaucratized. They should learn, or as in like, to become a model to the citizens, like try to make things as well be transparent, stop all whatever lopsided nepotism, like, when you see with this present administration, you need not to be told that everything has gone wrong. You see it, you're not even done with one, another comes to you. That's from the top down.
You have 1 minute more, sir.
Then from us, okay, thank you very much. Okay, from us, I think that from us, our problem we should reinstitute or revalorize this, our civic education. There's what we call in Germany, preußische Tugenden. You see a German, he tells you efficiency, cleanliness, Aufrichtigkeit, whatever. You understand, as a Bescheidenheit, moderation. These are what he's been inculcated, but he lacks in Nigeria. These things are no longer, it's now like the survival of the fittest. When we revalorize our situation, then I think it's a mutual condition. When we revalorize at the top down and the down top, I think we could make democracy work in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Dr. Sunday, you are with us and you have been following the discussion so far. You have the floor. You need to unmute, yes.
All right, yeah. Yes, thank you. Sorry, yes, well, I think I have deeply enjoyed myself with the different perspectives that people have brought up in this discussion. Like I always say, we cannot actually exhaust the different dimensions and understanding of corruption as a concept in Nigeria. My intention is to look at the sociological and cultural foundations, or if you like, socio-cultural foundations of corruption in Nigeria as an inhibition to its successful fight. There has been different attempts at fighting corruption in Nigeria from far long in history. You will recall that there was the Coca panel of inquiry in the, I think 1954. A panel tried Azikiwe and found him guilty, and there is African International Bank or whatever, IIB, for mismanagement of fund, and Awo too was tried. So it has always been, from history, you see that people have been tried for corruption for a long time. So it's not a new thing. And just like, I think it's Dr. Okay that really abstracted this very competently when he said that there is this mismatch between the concept of the nationhood and those who are supposed to be the nationals. So the Nigerian people have not come to understand Nigeria as a nation of theirs. It's just one big behemoth that people are fighting, or they are eating back at by taking a piece of their own cake wherever it affects it affords itself. For instance, there was this very popular joke that was running throughout the week, where somebody said the problem of Nigeria is that people are queuing to steal from Nigeria and more than people are currently stealing. So it's a case of people are patiently waiting for their own turn. And until we address that foundational issue, we are likely to just be, maybe just getting ourselves excited that we are talking about it. For instance, I believe that corruption has been intractable because its foundation have not been properly dissected. We have not interrogated the foundation of our culture and our attitude as a people. How do we relate? What is our understanding of government? And I want to take us to traditional leadership system. For instance, let's look at our Obaship. I'm a Yoruba person of Ekiti stock. So let's look at our Obaship and let us look at the way we enthrone the Oba and the powers that we give him, which you can find in our oral expressions. For instance, we say Oba Balori Umbubo. So the king is not to be challenged. You understand? The idea of Alashe Igbakeji Orisha, he even has divine authority to behave as he likes. Now you have something like Obagbesele. In other words, the king can actually, take away people's wife without anybody questioning him. So the power of absolutism is already ingrained in us. The idea of people in leadership are not to be questioned. In this country, even today, we are talking of deification of personalities. There are some personalities you dare not talk against, you dare not mention their name. People will, the way the whole nation will be moved against you, or their supporters will be moved against you, you will think you have offended a God. Because they have come to a point where they think people dare not touch these people. They are beyond reproach. They are beyond questioning. And that is where the problem is. Now, let's look at how we look at corruption generally. You will see that when somebody is given an appointment or is elected or is given any duty in public service, how do the ordinary person in the street, how does he see him? The ordinary person sees anybody in position of authority as more or less like a principal who has been sent away to go and look for and to go and get their own share of the cake to them. So our politics is essentially about people who are looking at those who have been sent out to go and steal on their behalf, what Dr. Oki called Robin Hood syndrome. So everybody is actually looking for somebody to be sent to Abuja to go and take the peace to their own village. So if there is an employment going on in your agency and you say, oh, I'm a moral agent, I cannot compromise, I'm not going to engage in nepotism, at the end of the day, people will tell you when you are director or when you are permanent secretary or when you are chairman of board or when you are minister, when you are this, when you are that, how many of our people did you employ? And you begin to wonder whether the job of a director general in a place is to employ people. People are not going to judge you by the performance that you have actually, exhibited while you are in office. Nobody is going to tell you, oh, while he was in office, he made this, he made that. They are going to subject you to how many church members have you helped? How many of your brothers are now living abroad? Because you are an ambassador, how many people have you facilitated that traveling out of Nigeria? So this prebender attitude to what leadership is about, it's also a problem. Then let us look at some of the things we say. The Yoruba will say, now, it could look benign, but I can tell you, these are things that people in authority are meant to believe. Okay, if I'm a minister of education, there is a university to be cited, I ensure it goes to my tab. Now, people see at local level, people see you as a big hero, somebody who has done what is expected of you. But we are talking of nepotism and favoritism here. That is why you can see the chief of army staff will create a university of army and then take it to Biu in his local area. And you see it everywhere. Almost everybody wants to create an institution and domicile it in their villages, because that is the expectation of the Nigerian people. People assume they expect you to use the facility of power that you have to better your people at the expense of other persons. If you don't do that, the people you think you serve, the kind of people you think you are being fair to by taking the university that should go to Kano and not bringing it to Ekiti, the kind of people will not see you as doing anything extraordinary. But back at home, you become a leper. You become somebody they call a persona non grata, because they think, oh, what you should have brought home, you have taken it to Kano. So like somebody said in the course of this conversation that our reward system itself is faulty. So nobody is going to celebrate you that, oh, even when he had the opportunity of bringing this thing to his village, he took it to where it should be cited rightly. So assuming there's going to be compensation for that kind of decision, then the nation would have learned a lesson from it. But at the end of the day, you will see that right there where you take this thing to, nobody praises you for doing the right thing. And back at home, you become a persona non grata. So these are the foundational issues. Our sociology about power, our understanding about power. You get a government job, a well-paying job. You go do Thanksgiving in the church, and everybody begins to send their invitation cards. I mean, they begin to give you their company profile. They submit CVs, curriculum vitae to you. Everybody begins to call you in the morning, in the afternoon. You cannot have your peace again. You are not allowed to even focus on your job. There is that perception that this is your time to make it. This is your time to help your people. So everybody sees these things like that. And if you don't behave like the way the ordinary person sees it, you are a failure. You see, I am in government and I understand. Let me tell you what, an instance. Last year, the State government was to recruit some people into the civil service. Okay? Now, as soon as that information went out, all of us who served with Mr. Governor, we came under heavy, pressure. Everybody in my village wanted me to help them to get a job. Now, government is probably going to employ about 500 people. And in my village, I know more than 200 people applied. And they expect, every one of them expected I should help them to get the job because I am the private secretary of Mr. Governor. Now, the party people are not, they are all, I mean, the notable people in government, from commissioners to senators to House of Reps, House of Assembly, to obas, to bishops, everybody has one person who is hanging on them to help them to talk to governor to get his slot. The governor quietly said, let's get this thing to a consultant. So he hired a consultant to do the exam, appraise them, evaluate them, and then recommend those to be appointed. Now, when people come and I told them, well, this thing is it's not within our remit, that we are not in charge. You understand that? Oh, this thing is this thing is being done by a consultant. At party meetings at home, threats of Shebe election, another election is coming. The same consultant will help you to vote for your party. You understand what I'm talking about? So you are already getting the result of doing the right thing. You are already getting it. Your party members are already telling you they are going to revolt against you for not using the instrumentality of government in their favor. They expect that now that we are in power, we should help members of APC to get jobs. Now they will tell you that when the people who are there, they help their members. So why is it now you are denying us? You say you want to do the normal thing, you want to be fair to all concerned. So we have this attitude which have their foundations in the way we understand power, in the way we understand responsibility, in the way we understand leadership. So leadership, as far as our people are concerned, is about it is your turn. They call it turn my turn. People will quietly wait for their turn. Now, if people had stolen in NDDC for years and they become billionaires without anybody talking about it, now that people from my village or people from my own end of the world, now that it is their time, people are now talking. You see, we have seen in this country people have been tried, and the ethnic group or ethnic movement are calling on United Nations and say it is ethnic war against their people. We have seen especially by communities deliberately instigate the youth to go and be bombing oil facility and government property because people have been trying this country. The economy of this nation was brought to a start in 2016 simply because there was a fear that the former president might be tried. So all these things are about how we see it. The ordinary person on the street does not see corruption as corruption. They see it as privilege. In fact, I want to tell you that left for the ordinary man on the street, the fight of the fight of corruption is just like a waste of time. The expectation of the street is that people in government should still big enough to take care of the people on the street. For instance, you will talk to people, they will say, hey, all the money they are stealing. What angers me the most is that they are taking it abroad, that they should have brought it home and invest in the local economy. In other words, they are not angry that people are stealing. They are just angry that people are hiding the loot outside. So that kind of mindset is going to be difficult to fight it. And the mindset that, okay, we are sending you to government now for you to go and steal your own and bring back to us. Now, if you now get to government and say, oh, I'm a saint, I don't want to do what everybody is doing, we want to save this country, you, my friend, people will say you are a failure, no matter the extent of good work you have done. I want to tell you, in this country, nobody judges a legislator by the piece of motions he has made or the number of bills he has sponsored. Nobody says a legislator has done well in this country. They only judge them by how many grinding machines you have given, how many bicycles you have bought, how many cars you have bought, how many people you have sponsored to maybe Mecca or Jerusalem, how many people you have helped to secure jobs that they did not deserve. This is the way legislators are judged in Nigeria by Nigerians. If you come to your constituency and say, oh, I have sponsored 5 bills, I have sponsored a bill that will make education free in Nigeria, nobody recognizes that as public service. They see you as just speaking in theory. They say you are a failure. But if you come home and say, yes, I have got 20 people into the Nigerian police, I have got 20 people into Central Bank, I have got another 10 people into NNPC, you are a good legislator. That is what they understand the job of a legislator to be. You are supposed to go to Abuja to go and put your people there too. So the whole idea of Nigeria is just what I can call a vast land that people are just securing territory to loot. So there is no sense of commitment to this country. And that is why from the leadership down up, the same problem resonates. I keep telling Nigerians that a bad nation cannot get a good leader, and a good leader cannot rule a bad nation. Now, no matter how good your intentions are, if you are in Nigeria as a leader, you will find it extremely difficult to survive. Because at every point you want to cause a revolution or a change, you will definitely see, and you will be surprised to see, that the whole thing is skewed against you. We see governors being impeached in this country because they resisted the traditional way of doing things. People lose election in Nigeria because people will say you are disconnected. What does it mean to be disconnected? You are not using the power the way they expect you to use it. You know, there is the language of the street you must understand. And until you use power like that, people assume that you are not doing the right thing. So all these things are very, very important. And like I've said, that is why I want to, for instance, I want to disagree with Professor Bamikole in his understanding of corruption solely as misuse of corruption as maybe financial gains. I think it's beyond that. I think the greatest problem we have with corruption in Nigeria is actually nepotism. You know, the idea that of it is my time, it is my time. Now, when it is your time, you want to fill your people, okay? And why are you doing that? Because you are already positioning them for future opportunities so that more of your people will be beneficial in future. So if I am Minister of, let's say, Petroleum, I ensure all the agencies in Petroleum Department that my people are there. So in another 20 years, they will be in a position to bring more people in. That way, you have cornered the wealth of the nation, and you have excluded so many people. So I think the way we understand national resources sharing, the way we understand our nation as a country, the way we see development itself is a lot of problem. You are in this Ekiti. Sometimes about 4 or 5 years ago, people will tell you, is it road we want to eat? You tell them about this man did road, he did schools. They say, is that what we want to eat? That there is no money, money is not flowing in the street. The ordinary person will tell you there is no money in the street. And you ask them, how does the money flow in the street? The contracts that are being done, the roads that are being done, are they being done by ghosts? Are this road not being done by people? Are contractors using robotics to do it? So
you have 2 minutes to wrap up, sir.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we have not really understood the political economy of service. We have not understood the political economy of development, and that is why everybody believes that the so-called big national cake, let me have a bite of it this time that I'm there. And until we address that, maybe as a form of orientation, maybe we need to, somebody talks about how to revalorize our nation. Let us have a new conversation about our nation. See, we have paid too much attention to political corruption or corruption of politically exposed persons. Until we go to the deeper root of corruption in schools, the primary schools, teachers dictating answers at common entrance, in secondary schools, the way we recruit people into public government offices and even private jobs. Nowadays, you hardly can get banking job if you don't know somebody. You hardly can get jobs in high-paid places without knowing somebody. All these things are very big issues that we should address. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's getting more complex, more complex than I thought at the beginning. It's obvious that corruption is much more bigger than that we perceive it. Okay, we'll go to the last speaker, last panelist, and then I know one or two of you already signified that you want to say one or two things. Professor Bukola Oyeni, I could see you. Yeah, Jepe, you are there. I know. Noah Balogun, Felu Ayimika, a lot of other people are my students in social justice. I know. But before I call on people to talk, Michael, you have the floor for 10 to 12 minutes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You can share your slides.
Okay. Thank you very much for the privilege to be here once again. I don't know how I can speak when I have heard Goliath speak on this very pervasive issue of corruption within our own society. But I will try my best. I just want to state before I start that I like to align with I don't know that I was still calling me Barrister Ibrahim Lawal position. I want to look at corruption from a societal perspective. I want to look at it from a nationalistic perspective and a class perspective. I believe that anything that exists in a society is painted by society. So corruption exists in a society, it's painted by that society, either by design or by complacency. It's either purposely done or for some reason or the other, people just have a lukewarm attitude towards it. It just go on, it's not really a big deal. Saying that, let me go into my presentation. Give me a minute. I don't know if we can see the slide. My prof, sir.
Yeah, you just open it. You've shown us the folder. You've not opened it.
Okay.
Just open this. Open the file for us.
Okay, I've opened it. I don't know whether it's showing over there. Not to be. You can't see anything, I'm guessing.
You just open it. I give you the right to share. Yeah, you have.
Okay. I'm sharing it now. Okay, so sorry, just technicalities, please. Can we see it now?
Nope.
Prof?
Nope.
I think
it's
the
not,
file
it's not
might
opening.
be. I think the file might be corrupt because I can see them.
Yeah, there's a double.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
the file might be corrupt.
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. Or maybe you should.
You could send it on the chat. Send it to the chat box. I'm sure you could do that.
Yeah, someone says nothing is wrong with the file. Okay. So
somebody. Oh, good.
So
okay, so I can go ahead and.
Okay, Professor Bamikole, can you see it? Is it that you can see it?
Yeah, no, I think he's just saying that it may not be corrupt, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Maybe you need to. I wonder now.
Okay. I don't know. Let me not take much of our time. Actually, I have a slide to share, but I don't know. Since the network is not allowing me, I would.
I think there is.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah.
It's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up. You just didn't allow it. It's coming up. It's up now. Okay. Go ahead, please.
So, can we see it now? Is it up?
It's up. It's up. It's up. Yes.
It's up. It's up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for taking that much time on technicalities.
It's fine.
Like I said,
fine.
Okay. Sorry. Like I said before, hearing gladiators speak, perhaps I would have changed my presentation format, knowing the way people have spoken. But nonetheless, I will go ahead with what I have here. So basically, I've been asked to speak on the topic, corruption is in Nigeria, a monster of many colors. A monster of many colors, corruption in history and in reality. Because this is going to be a historical view, so I'm basically going to the past and coming back to reality to try and compare the two. So I will be the speaker, definitely. So this is the outline I like to go. I would like to examine corruption. Hello, can we hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I would like to examine corruption, look at its dimension, go to the historical perspective of corruption, look at the reality of corruption in Nigeria, and then look at the way forward. I want to also say that I am looking at it from my own perspective. I know that there are different spectrum, different perspectives to look at corruption, my own perspective. And I also recognize the need for engagement from those who are more knowledgeable or the others to maybe perhaps shine the direction in the right way. But the conversation that we are having, to me, is the right process to go about it. Then I'll conclude and I'll give my salutation. So examining corruption in simplistic terms, since I was a small child in the seminary, the definition I got from corruption is simply that it is a deviation from the norm, meaning that the way things ought to be, anything you do that is outside of that is corruption. What do I mean? The simplest example I was giving is that if I just finished a sachet of water and I'm passing by and I throw it on the ground where there's a dustbin, that's corruption. So I know this is a much more sweeping broom used to paint corruption, because I know in the Nigerian context, we are looking at it from political corruption, class corruption, and the likes. But I think the first thing we need to accept is that we need to expand that definition. Whatever we do that is not the right thing is corruption. You are corrupting the way something's supposed to be. So why does corruption exist? To me, it exists out of a desire of a few to gain undue advantage over the many. Anytime you feel that you want to get undue advantage, I don't mean in a fair system, if you play by the rules and get those advantages, okay. But when you try to make the system unfair and then gain advantage onto yourself, that is corruption. How does it occur? In my view, it occurs in secret, outside the views of scrutiny, but not out of the knowledge and perception of society. We see corruption, we know it's happening, but we were not there when they were sharing the money. We were not there when the contracts were distributed. We only heard about it afterwards when these things happened. So what sustains it? In my view, silence. When society keeps silent about corruption, it grows. Fear to act. When we are too afraid to do anything about it, it grows. Lukewarmness attitude, now them they steal, not be my papa property and things like that. It grows. Lots of disincentive. Those who have stolen since 1960 to date, those who have engaged in one form of corruption since to date, are they praised or are they taken to the chopping block? That shows the next generation of people the way to go. After all, he did it. And if anybody is caught, they'll say, well, he did not know the way. He did not do it in the right way. And complacency, we're just, it's same thing as lukewarmness, you just allow it to go. That's what sustains it. So moving on to dimensions. In my view, looking at it from a societal perspective, corruption from a societal perspective, mind you, I'm looking at it from history and now, but I just want to lay some background. There are two dimensions to corruption. Corruption is better internal, that means it comes from within a society, and it is external. What do I mean by it is external? It is the element within the society that allows and promotes and sustain corruption. That is what internal dimension of corruption is. In my view, if corruption comes from a society, it is society's plague against itself. It is almost as if we ourselves created the coronavirus and released it into society to plague and kill ourselves. So it's basically looking at, stop blaming others. Let us look at it from, we as a society, we should accept the responsibility that, look, we have permitted this to grow. Then we can now start looking by accepting the blame ourselves, instead of blaming our leaders, instead of blaming our governors. Then we can say, from my own level, what can we do to correct this, to return back to the norm? So in looking at internal dimension, I look at it from three different perspectives. There are three starters that determines the permissibility or otherwise of corruption in a society. It comes from either the elite, the government, and the citizens. And I deliberately put the government in the middle. Because many times and not, we carry the government to the top. Government is a social contract. We created government. The citizens permitted government to exist, to deliver on their expectation. Then we look at the elite. In every society, every civilization, the elite determines the direction of that society. If the elites are corrupt, that society will be corrupt. If the elite says there will be no corruption, that's society, because they have the greatest amount of resources, influence, and clout to determine the direction of society. So they have the influence. They are not more powerful, they just simply have the influence. Why government is the decision maker, they decide on how to make the rules fair and knowable in advance so that everybody can play by that rule and shared prosperity can be delivered to us all. If government therefore is hijacked by the elites or some group of people, corruption will continue to permeate in that society. Citizens, many people do not know that citizens have the greatest amount of resources. When I mean citizens, I'm looking at the middle class, the lower class. The elite, I'm looking at the ultra wealthy and the likes. They are two different classes of people. That's why I say I'm going to also look at it from a class perspective. Citizens that are a middle class, those who earn above 100,000 naira on a monthly basis and above, that's how the McKinsey report defined middle class of Nigeria. I think there's about 20 million people that in that bracket. How then do they have the greatest amount of resources? They have the greatest amount of clout, but because of their numbers, they are not organized. They cannot legitimately throw out their grievances to government. But it is from this group that legitimately derives from. They serve as the expectation level. So I just created some levels there. The elite will serve as the influence level, the government will serve as the decision level, and the citizens will serve as expectation. What is the expectation of citizens? The previous panelists have spoken about the expectation of our citizens, that when you get there, you should bring something back. If that's our expectation as a society, definitely corruption will continue within this group. So the next dimension that sometimes we do not look at, but it's not a way of blaming others, because whatever happens in your family, you are the author and finisher of it. It is look at the external dimension. It comes from forces outside of your society. There are forces outside of Nigeria who want to take undue unethical advantage. They see the weak structure, the corrupt environment as an avenue for them to come in, make their money and go out. The problems are yours to deal with. So this element exists, but it does not exist without collaborators within Nigerian society who collaborate with these outsiders to create the kind of distortions we see in our society, the corruption we see in our society. We remember the Hill voting scandal that happened here in Nigeria. We remember the PID scandal that Nigeria was slapped with a large fine that I don't know whether my generation or the generation coming after can pay that fine over that time, but we took it to court, thank God for that. So this dimension I divide into foreign interests. The foreign interests are the foreigners to us who come in with their own expectation. They want to gain undue advantage. And collaborators, those in society who wish to benefit from whatever is going on within that dimension. So let us now go into the historical perspective of corruption. History is broad, and like I said, I have a background in international relations, but I am avidly interested in history. That understanding the history of things is when you can know how to solve it. So corruption is not new, and everybody, I think the previous speakers have said so, it's not new, tracing from colonialism, neo-colonialism, but tracing as far back as even the history of man. Even in the heart of democracy, what we call democracy today, in ancient Greece, there was corruption, bribery, vote buying. This didn't happen now. Even stomach infrastructure is not new. In ancient Rome, if you can remember the ancient Roman Republic and Empire, you have the likes of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, whose activities and action led to the end of what we call the ancient Roman Republic and led to the emergence of the Roman Empire under Augustus. He himself marched on Rome. He was a governor appointed and sent out to govern a province. He went to war in another land, and the Senate, what we are called the Senate today, was derived from ancient Rome. Senate told him that is an illegal warfare. You cannot do that. The wealth he acquired there, he was using to bribe people to buy vote during elections in ancient Rome. They had elections, and with grain and salt, wine and meat, you can bribe citizens to vote for you as they like. And that's how citizens, they were just exchanging it. It was called the use of circus and beer. Just entertain the people, and then you can do whatever you like. Although he had his own good intentions in creating a new system, but how he went about it for the Senate was corrupt. So to ancient India, to ancient China, and yes, to a pre-modern Africa. But the difference between the society and the modern day is that although corruption existed, society still had values. There was still this, you do not do it to this extent. There was like a lever that, do not cross this line, even though you are corrupt. We can even look back in, for those of us who are Christians, if you look at the biblical example of St. Paul in the Bible, when he was arrested and sent for trial. I think was that Caesarea Philippi. The judge that was appointed was expecting to bribe him. The judge there was expecting to bribe him. This happened over 2,000 years ago. So corruption has always existed in every society, and as civilization developed, there is always corrupt element. Even in the United States today, if you check 2020 scandal, corrupt scandal in the United States, you'll be shocked to see the number of corruption that is happening there.
You have 2 minutes more.
And the like. So looking at it also from its Western origin. Thank you very much, my Prof. Looking at it from the Western origin, I am not blaming the West. I'm not saying that corruption originates from the West, but I believe that materialism, the pursuit of material acquisition, created a new wave of corruption that we have not yet seen in the history of man before, like the Opium War, Western Day. Because I have time, I would just have to rush and slide. So definitely I look at the spread of corruption to Africa, but most speakers have already talked about it. African collaborators were the ones who allowed many of these things we are saying today. I stated at the end of this that blaming others do not help. It is escapism. We must own up to our faults and determine how to fix it. What is the reality of corruption here in Nigeria? No administration since independence has escaped this kind of corruption. That is true. And such is absence of the undetected corruption. Corruption Incorporated, which is a mega billion US dollar industry in Nigeria. Since independence till now, over 400 billion has been stolen. And public perceives most Nigerian institutions are corrupt. That's an indictment of society by a society. And the last day, you can see that by 2020, there's an analysis that says by 2020, corruption will account for 37% of the Nigerian GDP. 37%, that means 37 kobo of every 1 naira you own by 2030 will go to corruption. And definitely, how then do we chart a way forward? I know a lot of people have produced a lot of things, but I think proper diagnosis will start. It's just like a virus. If you don't have the proper diagnosis of the virus, you cannot solve it. And the next one is vigilance. This one is very dear to my heart. Citizens' vigilance. When you shine a light on something, that is when the thing will be exposed. If you keep on hiding and speaking in our bedrooms, nothing will happen. And we have a lot of civil society organizations that are doing that. Budget IT, which for the first time have brought out citizen budget, telling us what is being spent on our budget track, where you can go to a place where a budget is cited in your local community, see it with your phone, you snap it and you send back, and they'll go and evaluate how this will do. Yaga Africa that gave us the not so wrong to young wrong bill, follow the money that does the same thing as budget IT, connected to government and the many more. So what am I saying here? What we have to do is we need to volunteer, because these are volunteering institutions to shine the light. You don't need to travel far. Within your community, just check on their site. They will tell you the project that government is doing there. You go to the location that is stated in the budget and see if it's there. If it's not there, you snap it and send back. A team will come within a month to check if that is the fact. That's one way we can go about it. We also need generational thinking. Corruption cannot be scrubbed away from Nigerian history immediately. How then do we prepare the next generation for the fight? What can we do within a generation? What is our achievement? What can we put? A gradual approach. I do not, although many people say it should be holistic, it should be this, it should be that. I think, how do we recruit the next generation of leaders? How do we train them? And the likes. We need to think about generational thinking in solving the issue of corruption in Nigeria. And lastly, we need to return to our values. We need to decide as a society, what do we wish to have as values? And I believe we should start from one, the value of life. I don't think we should start from many, just one, the value of life. If we value life, moving forward, we will be able to do much. And I just want to end with this quotation: that which grows in the shadow but withers in the light of day does not belong on the vine. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Before I take the final round of comments and then we end today's webinar, I would like to recognize one or two participants who are willing to ask a question and make comments. Let me go to Professor Bukola from Missouri. Professor Bukola, you have the floor. 3 minutes. Professor Bukola. Professor Yeni, you can talk now.
Unmute my.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. I
have two issues to raise. One is a comment, the other is a question. Please. The first one, the comment, goes to Dr. Obinna Chinweokwu. Okay. I like to challenge his view to Nigeria as put forward in this presentation. And I must say ahead that it's not his view. It's a popular thing that Nigerian politicians, Nigerians in general talk about. In his presentation, he traced Nigeria's problem to 1914 amalgamation of Northern and Southern Protectorate with the Crown Colony of Lagos to form Nigeria. My point is simple. Almost all nations of this world were amalgamated at one point or the other. So this is not new. It was valorizing Germany. Therefore, I will use the case of Germany to illustrate this point. German-speaking people, they spread widely across Europe. They are not just limited to Germany that he is in. In fact, if you are going to trace the history of ethnic groups in Germany, how they merged together, we can go back as far as 1815. In fact, the process started in 1815 and ended in 1866. The name German or Germany itself were not German. It was even derogatory. It was imposed on them by Julius Caesar, who derogatorily described the land beside the Rhineland as Germania. He was using it to differentiate from Gaul, that is France, that Caesar conquered. So back to the history of Germany, I will talk about it briefly. German Confederation was formed in 1815 by 39 different ethnic groups. They have a common language that Julius Caesar called Germania. Others were in Central Europe, they were in Eastern Europe, and in 1815, at the Congress of Vienna, they came together for the first time as a replacement of the Holy Roman Empire that was defunct by 1806. We can even talk about Italy too. It was the forceful coming together of several disparate ethnic nationalities. So what is the big deal about Nigeria that everybody keeps talking about amalgamation of 1914? People who are not historians or some historians with false education have also perpetrated this lie. Permit me to briefly correct this. As a historian, I've always known one fact. From our oral history, you will find evidence of it. The three big ethno-linguistic groups in Nigeria, Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa, were all works of Magyars. Take the case of Odolaye. He had a son, Okabi. Okabi had 7 children. These Okabi's children, the 7 of them, thank God, Lawyer Ibrahim is here. He doesn't want the name lawyer, but I don't care. Yeah. The 7 children of Okabi dispersed from Ile-Ife to other parts of Yoruba land to rule over the people there. Guess what? The people to rule over these people. So we are talking about histories of people from somewhere ruling over another people, and they form what we today call Yoruba land. What about a rich tradition that talk about the amalgam of 7 original Igbos? What about the Bayajida story from Hausa land? That talk about 7 legitimate and 7 illegitimate children. So to 1 minute more, sir. Thank you. So if you look at all this, it's just a story of processes in which bigger groups were formed through amalgam of smaller ones. So I don't want us to continue with that track. The second one that goes to Mr. Ibrahim, my lawyer friend, I will want you to speak to the impact of this culture of giving gifts, which has always been part of African culture. What are the impact of the culture of giving gifts in the enthronement of corruption in Nigeria? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Can I react to that?
No, not yet, sir. Not yet. Take note of the question. Ipiwa, sir. Ayo Ipiwa, sir, you have the floor. Ayo Ipiwa, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, you have the floor. Yes, Ayo, you have the floor. Thank you.
Sir, I have just 2 questions to ask, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
The first one is, firstly, I guess I should thank every single speaker for their concrete information and perspective on corruption. But my first question is, we have been able to establish the facts from what everyone has said about corruption. One of the facts I was able to establish is about corruption existing in the mindsets of upcoming leaders and upcoming future leaders in the country. I think one of the speakers said something about people queuing to get their own courts more than people who are already getting their own courts. So my first question is, is there any available concrete means or way to curb the already existing mindsets on corruption or the already existing perspective on corruption amongst youths on upcoming leaders? Is there any way, is there any concrete or existing means to curb the mindset on corruption in upcoming leaders and existing youths? And my second question is it advisable or does it sound like a legitimate idea to introduce the idea or the talk of corruption into the academic system for the next generation in order to build up their mindset or to deviate their mindset away from the popular view on how people see corruption and the society for the next generation? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I'll take some of the questions that have been dropped here. Sorry, questions. I'm sure a lot of people can see it. All the panelists can see the question. There's no need for me to start doing that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do because we don't have the time anymore. Any other person want to talk, want to comment? Our attendees?
I need to react.
No. I'll come to the panelists. I'm talking to the attendees and those watching. Thanks, Professor Badini, for your comments online. For your comment, we appreciate that. Is on Facebook. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. For some of our students who joined, like I said, Ayo Ekwinwasa, Jegede, I think, who is the other person? Send me a message. You courtesy of Boyega Babalola, you got yourself data gifts and a credit card of 1,000, a top-up card of 1,000. That is courtesy of Boyega Babalola. That is Dr. Eddie. He asked me to thank you for your time on the webinar and for you to get data back. So send me your phone, telephone, and I will forward the data to your phone. Okay. Ikwinwasa, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Now I go back to our panelists. We are running off. I'll just take final comment from everybody. So Obinna, you reply when you are making your final comment, okay? So I will start with Professor Lawrence Bamikole, then to Dr. Tayo, then Dr. Chika, then to Obinna, and then we end with Dumbi. So, Professor Bamikole, 2 minutes, please, because we need to leave. It's been a long day, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and my fellow panelists. This has been an exciting discussion. What has come out from this discussion is that we need to shift our focus on corruption a bit to see corruption not as a problem, but as a mystery. When we say something is a mystery, it means that human beings themselves were part of this problem. And that is why it has become very, very difficult to address the issue of corruption. Now, I want to make a kind of correction. My concept of Omoluabi is not an empirical concept. It is a normative concept. For the simple fact that our leaders do not act like Omoluabi does not actually deviate from the ideal concept of Omoluabi, because it is an ethical concept. It involves the issue of personal and public morality. And I am saying that as long as we are deviating and violating these principles, definitely we are engaging in corruption. My solution, well-suggested solution. Some of these panelists have suggested the idea of civic education. Very, very appropriate. But I want us to begin from even our own personal reawakening, moral renaissance, actually moving to a new humanity at the personal level. And so when we extend this to the political level, then it forms the idea of citizenship. I'm not sure whether civics is still being a subject in our primary curriculum. One of the suggestions that I want to make is that let us inculcate these moral principles into our curricula right from the primary to the tertiary level, and then try to inculcate in our agents the motivation for us to do something that is good rather than actually engaging in something that is actually a debasement of the concept of Omoluabi. And the process of education is very important because this education starting from the primary to the tertiary, we are supposed to be the leaders of tomorrow. And therefore, if we are able to inculcate this ethical concept and there's a motivation for us to act according to its precepts, then there can be a kind of hope for us to regenerate our personal life and our ethical and political life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Tayo, please. Your closing thoughts, sir, your final thoughts. We can't hear you. You need to unmute, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. I'm going to be extremely brief. I think the way forward, two suggestions I have, and I've been peddling these ideas for the last 3 to 4 years, as in none of the main idea I've been peddling for the last 3 or 4 years hasn't really got much traction. But I will push the idea again, regardless, right here. The first thing I think that needs to be done is that we need to decriminalize corruption. Wait, it's not what you think. I'm not saying corruption should no longer become a crime. What I'm saying is to decriminalize. That means to stop using the criminal jurisdiction to prosecute cases of corruption and switch to civil means of recovering the proceeds of these corrupt assets. Why? Because very simply, I said this to, when I gave a keynote address to the FCC conference in Abuja last year, and, you know, and I said exactly what I'm saying now, and they were all going, wow, we should stop criminal prosecution. Yes, the reason quite simply is that the average Nigerian man, and I use the word man advisedly because we also have women, corrupt women leaders. The average African values property more than he does value his liberty. So when you catch somebody and you say you're going to jail, it doesn't really resonate. You know, you send me to jail, I negotiate, better 3 years, 5 years, I'm out. But when you now confront the same person with the possibility of losing totally his property, right to the shirt on his back, then you're talking of a completely different game. So what we should do is to be creative in our judicial system and shift from a criminal prosecution to asset confiscation and declare anyone who can be usefully described as politically exposed person, and I mean anyone who has any contact with state funds, state property, as custodians of those property, declare them as trustees of those property. It's never been done before. It's never been practiced before. Nobody has ever declared any official or any person in contact with government property as a trustee of the property. Why not? Why can't we do that? Because once you are legally recognized and declared as a trustee of intellectual property, it carries one of the most onerous responsibilities in the entire world. Nobody can shy away from that because it allows the state or the financial crime agency to bypass the criminal process altogether. They just go after you and they make you account for every single dime that you came in contact with, not just the value of what you stole, but actually any consequential value that may have accrued from that. So the process of accounting can take you back from the top of the mountain where you think you are, can take you back to the grassroots. Let's make 1, 2, or 3 examples of that, and we'll see a vast improvement and a vast mindset
in the way
we deal with corrupt practices.
Thank you so much.
Very quickly, Mr. Moderator, very quickly. I'm not going to take too much of your time. The second thing is that we need to renegotiate the Nigerian state, and we can only do that through peaceful revolution or violent revolution. The remit of that discussion is beyond the discussion of that is beyond the remit of this today's conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, sir. Dr. Mba, 2 minutes. Dr. Chika.
Yes, I'm here. It's really been very interesting, and especially because people have been very honest, I know. So let me quickly say that I do think that especially Mr. Ibrahim Lawal, one of our panelists, probably misunderstood where I was coming from. And then, and of course, I completely understood Professor Bamikole when he first spoke. I'm not saying that Omoluabi is not desirable, or that indeed it is not something we could strengthen in order to overcome corruption, especially at the lower levels, But I'm just trying to guard against the assumption that the older people, because I did hear that, were brought up the right way. Right now, these people. So I'm now questioning that, because it's not just our leaders, and like all of us have agreed. So my emphasis has not been on leadership, really. I've focused on the time. That's why I referred to my primary, when I served as a youth corps, at the lower level, these problems are there. But I don't want the assumption that the older people, I've heard that argument all over, even during the last election, the older people knowing the writing or being better than the younger generation. That's what I'm denying. And I'm denying that those old values that we used to have that are supposed to prop up our society, help us overcome challenges to do with corruption, for example, that they haven't helped. So that now we need a new way out. Even if it includes re-engineering, so to say, Omoluabi. But right now, based on what the facts before us, that has not taken us any far. Now, coming finally to suggestion, the way forward. I will begin by critiquing this arrangement. This webinar. Although I think, Professor, I think Yemi, you have already replied to someone on that, online. We just have only men here. So I think even this arrangement is itself corrupt. The panelists are all men. So I would suggest that in future, if we are going to have a webinar or any conversation as serious as this, if it's not going to be, there is not going to be equitable distribution of, suspend it until you have something that is reasonable in terms of gender, ethnicity, and so on, because you have said that all these problems are part of why we're having our challenges in our country. Because now, if we see this webinar as men having a conversation about corruption, of what use? People see it as Yorubas or Igbos having a conversation. It's of no use in the end if we are going to be talking about Nigeria. Although I am one of those who agree that we need to think about Nigeria again, if not to the extreme level that people like Nnamdi Kanu has taken it, but at least we should renegotiate Nigeria, because this is a contraption already, and that's part of the problem. Nobody believes in Nigeria. Then thirdly and finally, this is about suggestion about the way forward. I am tired of That's why most of the time, honestly, I have that kind of regard for Ademowo. That's why I eventually gave in to have this conversation, because I'm looking for sincere people to have conversation with. I don't want to waste my time with in conversations and meetings and seminars, because in the last 2 decades, I can't count them on different subjects. And most of the time, we come back another week and another month. I go from one conference to another, the same conference, the same issues. Insofar as it's about African problems, Nigerian problems. We had a very big one here on similar issues, you know, the UNICEF or UNO. You know. So I don't want to keep joining when there will be nothing that will come out of it. So what can we do after this webinar? Are we perhaps going to reach resolutions? Are we going to, like the civic education, you know, it's not about just classrooms. Can we print something, share in the marketplaces, look for means of printing, let people read? Because we need to generate the kind of impetus from the below. I'm of that opinion that it has to be the people to tackle what is going on. And I disagree that the ordinary Nigerian is to be blamed more for corruption. It is the leadership, and the leadership has to write in it. Even though I'm saying I'm not focusing on them, but because I'm trying to say that to tackle that leadership, it has to come from below. So even this conversation of what use is it, if we are not going to use it to do something that will affect the society, because we are all afraid. Recently I tried to tackle from within the university, the Nigerian university. I came back and went back to my own alma mater. I know what I got. You know, people are afraid. Professors, senior people in the university are afraid of tackling corruption. They know it, they have evidence, they agreed with me, but they said they're afraid. So if we are not going to do anything after having this kind of conversation, please, Professor Ademowo and the other colleagues, with due respect, don't invite me next time, because I am for translating words into action. And that's why I blame the older people all the time, because I don't want to get old and be challenged the way I'm challenging the older people right now. I want to contribute and show that I did my own best. Part of why I am in diaspora is because of corruption. It's because of this refusal to do the right thing in our society. In our own very universities, the universities that are supposed to be the champion of this thing as a civic education, and the universities train the people that will train, that will go and train people in primary and secondary school and so on. Have you forgotten that? So when the university is corrupt, is hopelessly corrupt, how would the primary and secondary schools work? So stop telling me stories. Stop all these. I'm tired of listening to professors and older people tell us stories. Translate words into action. Show me that you are willing to die to change the process. If not, let us stop all this conversation. At least don't invite me. That's my temperament. I don't want to wait. I don't want my children to insult me later. Because this thing, we talk about it all the time and nothing comes out of it.
Thank you, Dr. Ba. Ibrahim Lawal, please. Ibrahim Lawal, please. Okay, Obinna, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity. Because I said we should revalorize our system, you know, like how a society or how, politics was, as well the convictions that undergird the formation of politics. And I said is from the family, oikos, household. And that is why I still maintain my point. Then for the speaker that said about formation of Germany and all that and traced it back to 1817, you're very wrong. Because historically, the German state, as you know it today, was at the end of the Franco-Prussian Wars, and that was after 1871, and it wasn't 1817. That was the unified Germany. But this unified Germany, lest you forget, that also was disparate elements, like I will say, coming together of various cultures, the Schwaben, the Thuringen, and all that, various religions, Language was already there because there was Martin Luther from the 15th century that established this common ground of language. The Jews were also there, not to forget, incorporated into Germany. Then what happened from the 20th century with the coming of Hitler? That's what we called democracy or modernization in Germany today cannot be completed without the war. And that was the extermination of the Jews. I listened to Wole Soyinka when he talked the other time. He said, the problem with Nigeria is that there are some of us who are already held to this idea of want Nigeria to discuss that the sovereignty of the nation is non-negotiable. That's a lie. The Germany you know today wasn't the Germany after the Second World War. There was an anthem, the first stanza and the second stanza of the German anthem is today not sung. Why? Because he said, Deutschland über alles. When Hitler came to power, he went straight to Slovakia, also Czechoslovakia. There were the Süddeutschen, also they call them Sudetendeutsche. He wanted to incorporate them. You already know with the annexation of Austria, they were also part of Germany. They had similar culture till today. The Switzerland, the Austrians, and the Germans, they are like a family. We cannot be talking about theories here. Look at the Nigerian situation. Only my name tells you my tribe. Only your names tell me your tribe. How would nepotism, how would ethnic rivalry not emerge from that? It's impossible. It's impossible. That's why you just have to wait for every appointment that is made. Once you hear Muhammad, you said, he's from the north. Buhari has done it again. Lopsided nepotism. You hear this one. Someone even had to block me because of the fight between Faleke and Ngige. He thought I was of the opinion that Ngige is this one or that one. I don't support neither. But I don't like where Nigerians, our youth, key into this tribalism. It doesn't work that way. If it is what, or if Nigerians cannot transcend that, religion, culture, language, I don't see why we could say that the unity of this country is non-negotiable. That's my part. That's another part. The second part I want to talk about is we are all given
conclusion, right? Yes. Okay.
The revalorizations that we should transcend all these tribal, ethnic, whatever, and all that. See each other as family. Democracy itself has already its weak points. You know, if you could even tell me, say that I'm a dangerous communist, I would accept that really, because democracy had offered us nothing except that this government topples one, the other comes, promises you change. This one comes and tells you the change. APC, PDP, you cannot tell which one is democratic. Unlike in the America, you know the Republicans are the conservatives, the Democrats are the liberals. But in Nigeria, what do you have? Nothing. Just a system, series, catena of this one comes in, you know, continues where these others stop, or try even to cause an upheaval of the previous administrations. And the Nigerian people replicate these things in their lives. It has no longer meaning to them. They are disillusioned. So sometimes when we talk about this thing, I think we should also, not only that we revalorize what we think, or the civic education or whatever, going transcending tribe, you could see, you go to wherever you see Igbo ministers in Lagos, or you see Yoruba ministers in Igbo land. This is what I'm talking about. We transcend that. In UK, you see them, you see Nigerians in the parliament, and you rejoice. But in Nigeria, in our own country, you are born in a land, you do not belong there, even till that.
Thank you, sir.
How does this work? It can't. You know, I grew up in a state in southeastern Nigeria. I grew up in a state, in a southeastern, I've lived there, my family lived there for over 30 years in Abia State. I'm from Anambra State. My family lived over 30 years in this state. One day, one of the governors woke up and said, all non-indigens back to your states. In Southeast, we see that already in Lagos. We see that in North. We see that in East. Rural policies, this one, everywhere is shaking. As people have so much keyed into the corruption that we can no longer become like a family. We have defamiliarized ourselves. Now, what is the solution? That we should revalorize look back into ourselves. Look and transcend all these ethnic rivalries. Look and transcend all these religious divisions and whatever. All the other, it's no meaning. You come to Germany here, you call someone's name, Angela Merkel. Only few would know, where is she from? She's from the East Germany. Her name doesn't give her out. Not same with Nigeria. Only your name alone is to crucify you, is to make you remain jobless for the rest of your lives.
Thank you, sir. Please, Obinna, just 1 minute. Round of 1 minute, please.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that I really thank you for this opportunity you gave us, so that it's not only about talking. We should also, try things that are feasible, feasible. If it is come back to the table, discuss restructuring or whatever, discuss the values. I'm so interested about the younger generations coming up. They have, you see Yahoo now. I was also a victim of it. Someone took my 8,000, whatever. You see, there is no longer, the hold is so tenuous, it can no longer bind. There should be revalorization. Tell them that the graft and industry are the ways to success, not through Yahoo, or comparison of this, why you go arrest this person, why you read the politicians made it a steal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you, Obinna. Thank you, Obinna.
Yes, I am here. Moderator.
You have the floor, sir.
You called me the other time. Yes, let me.
There's a question for you from Professor Bukola.
Yes, it talks about gifts. It talks about gifts, and the law is clear as to the manner of gift you can get. You can get a gift if there is nothing attached to it. The law is very clear about when a gift could be offered and when it could become unlawful for you to get a gift, particularly when you have business relationship with that person in terms of you are an official, and the person benefited from your official duty, and in the course of that you are offered a gift. It can be criminal because that would be trying to give back to you in form of kickbacks. So that's the concept of gift is different. But when you now, because on the basis of who you are, a gift is given to you, it is different from the Yoruba concept of giving gifts in appreciation of whatever goodness you have done. It is quite different. Having said that, I still want to also insist that to tackle this problem of corruption, all of us must put our hands on the glove towards ensuring that this monster do not, destroy all of us. We must begin to get interested in the affairs of our community and ensure that we downplay the role of money in our politics. We must, as educated elites, get involved in community development and try as much as possible to educate our people and show by example what we can do differently. We must let them realize the fact that it does not take the whole world to make things happen. That we must contribute our effort. It is not enough for us to sit down at the comfort of our offices and begin to postulate and say this is not good, this is the way forward. We have to, there must be practical engagements now. And that is why I want to agree with Dr. Chikamba as to our practical approach to issues. And one of the ways by which you can do that is for us to get involved. If I'm starting from our community, by the time we do that and we lay good examples, I can assure you that things would be different from what they are. You see, the problem even with our youth is that there are no role models. We don't give ourselves out as role models. And so what they do, who they see, the hush puppies of this world, becomes their role model, because we have failed in our duty to also give that leadership. If I challenge all of us now, how many of us, as we are sitting down here, as educated and exposed as we are, how many of us had gone back to our village and mentor one or two persons to be like us? We have also failed in that duty. And that is the practical approach we must look at and see what we can do to also encourage people and discourage them from looking for what will not last. We need to put all measures in place to ensure that we encourage our people to toe the line of honesty. And we can do that by giving ourselves as one of the example of people who do honest things to achieve a desired goal. If we fail to do that, we'll just be going round and round and round and without any purpose. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Michael, your own final thoughts. 2 minutes. Michael, then we close. Michael.
Yes, sir.
Yes, 2 minutes. Your own conclusion. Yes, please.
I don't have much to say. I've made my final submission in my work. I just want to add to the voice of others who have spoken on the need to renegotiate the concept of the Nigerian state, restructuring, whatever you want to call it. I think we should find, in renegotiating Nigerian state, bring governance to the grassroots. In a situation where your daily necessity, your expectations do not get channeled to Abuja, you channel it to your local government in a way where your leaders are your next door neighbor. You can definitely hold them to account. And also that we can volunteer in institutions that allows us to check government, like budget ITs and the likes. And the last thing is that we must identify corruption as a problem, and anyone who has a problem must find a solution to it. If we don't think it as a problem, the corrupt people don't think it as a problem, they see it as a business. We're the ones that are saying it's a problem. So we need to find a way how we can, in our little spaces, do those the little things that will lead to the end of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all our panelists for their time. Yes, I have feedback. Of course, organizing something like this, you have just fulfilled one of the reasons, which is to challenge those who are watching us, those who are attending the webinars. You have done your bit, actually. You might not want to be the politician. All of us cannot be like Barrister Ibrahim Lawal. Might not be able to be like Dr. Aiku, Ani. But then, whatever opportunity we have to be closer to people like this, to see that people who are ready to contest, who want to be in power, feel that they can do it, we can support them. I might not want to be a political gladiator. My job might be to teach in classroom. I might not have that ambition. But the fact is, I agree with Dr. Chika, but we need to take action. Part of the action is what we are doing. We have to do our own bits differently. I wish you could bring a female to join the panel, but on corruption, one or two of them that address, one agreed to join, but later on declined because of time. So much of the time they want to go to party on Saturday. I don't know why that is, but it's not peculiar to women. Men also go to party on Saturday. But then I think I've noted the observations. I will take note. Another change that is going to, major change that is going to be effected is that after this 10 series, we'll reduce the number of panelists from 8. I'm going to reduce it to between 3 and 5, so that we could have much more robust discussion and we could spend little time more rather than these 3 hours. But then, with that as it's me, I want to thank everybody. It's been a wonderful 3 hours we all spent. Professor Lawrence Bamikole woke you up. This is very early in the morning, around 5:30 6 a.m. in Jamaica. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Chika, thank you so much. If I say I have opportunity, if you like abuse me, I drag you. You know me, sir. I go drag you. Obinna, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. My Ibrahim Lawal, thank you so much, Joe. No, very nice to call you. Dr. Okay, we are still together here. Thanks so much for all the support. You are a wonderful person, good writer. You've been doing a lot. We really appreciate you, Dr. Tayoke. We are proud of you, actually. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Michael Dumbi, thank you so much. Dr. Aiku, thank you. Waki, Odolaye, thank you so much. To all our attendees, to those watching us on Facebook Live, thank you so much for your time. The next one will come up towards the middle of August, and it's going to be on tax. Thank you so much. Until we meet then, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.